Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. I'd like to get going. Would everyone please stand and join us in the flag salute? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Welcome. I'd like to report out on our closed session. Item C2A was conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Subdivision C of Section 54956.9, number of cases 2. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. And then item C2B, public employee discipline dismissal release, Government Code Section 54957. Information exchanged, no action was taken. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of our last meeting. Can I get a motion there?
I move that we approve the minutes of regular meeting January 24th, 2017.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I actually have some changes that I wanted to make, and I'm not sure how to make those or how to discuss that. I don't know.
You can just vote no, I suppose. I mean, I don't. At this point, they're the minutes.
Right, but there were some mistakes that were made in the minutes, so I'm just trying to find out how to correct the record so that they reflect.
What is it pertaining to?
Well, there's actually several things. I rewatched the section relating to the ETK a number of times, and there's actually a moment at 1 hour and 25 minutes into the video where I make a motion to approve the pilot program with details to be decided at the next meeting.
So we can you can vote against if you're not approving the minutes as they were taken, then you can vote against that. And then because we're going to be taking up the ETK issue again, and so we can have that discussion then rather than having it now and then having it again.
Right, but isn't there just a way to amend? Can't we just amend the minutes?
I'm not sure. We can amend the minutes.
Craig is raising his hand.
Craig, our counsel.
Any board member has the right to make a motion to amend the minutes by specifically describing what it is that he or she wants changed. And then if that motion is seconded, it can be voted upon.
Okay.
And as you said, Mr. President, I know that there's going to be a substantive discussion of the ETK issue when it comes up later. So for the efficiency of time, that's probably where most of the effort on this matter should be spended.
Thank you.
I just had a question too, because in reviewing the video, I just wanted to know what happens if, like, my motion was, I made a motion and then Roger actually approved it, but then we never actually voted on it, and then it came up again and was not seconded and was not voted and was not passed. I'm just wondering what the protocol is for a situation like that.
Well, it was an unusual process that was followed, but what actually happened, because I looked at it too, was that you made the motion, and then most likely because other board members didn't hear Mr. Delgado, he said second, but the discussion kept going, and it kept going, and it kept going, and before anything else happened, Mo made another motion that was almost the same as the first motion, and that failed to get a second. And it was at that point that Michelle then offered her motion that was ultimately voted on 4-1.
So we don't think it's a problem not to have the minutes amended to reflect. The other issue that I had was with the way that Michelle made her motion was not reflected accurately in the minutes. So what was actually approved and voted on was not what was recorded in the minutes.
Well,
That seems to me a larger issue.
But as I said, the normal procedure would be if you wish to amend the minutes, which is your perfect right, make a motion and say, I move that the minutes be amended at this point to say thus and such instead of the other.
Okay.
And then if you get a second to that motion, then it can be discussed and voted upon.
Okay. Then I move to, well, we've got a motion on that, but Andy's already made a
So you
motion to
can-
approve the minutes. Can I,
So you can
would my,
you can amend that motion.
okay. Then I move to amend the motion to approve the minutes by changing the January 24th, 2017 minutes to reflect the motion on item E4 that Michelle Robertson made to read, quote, she wanted to continue the pilot for another year, take staff recommendations on birthdays with up to 3 classes with a cutoff at your discretion with licensing and Title V ratios in consideration as we move forward in our budget discussions.
Is there a second for that?
Give me a minute. I need to read what's in it. So, Maureen, is your amendment to take out the 3 classes of 24?
My amendment is just to reflect what you actually said.
So to take out the specifics that are here and just say with Title V and Title 22 consideration?
Your motion that you made was to continue the pilot for another year, take staff recommendations on birthdays with up to 3 classes with a cutoff at your discretion with licensing and Title V ratios in consideration as we move forward in our budget discussions. That's what you said, and that's what I feel that the minutes should reflect rather than what they currently reflect.
So you would like to amend Michelle's?
That's correct.
No, not amend the motion, amend the minutes.
No, we're amending the minutes, because we,
Amending the minutes to correctly reflect what Michelle actually moved and what we voted on and approved.
I'll second.
you'll second it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There you go. Okay, can I get someone to move for the approval of the agenda and consent agenda?
So moved.
Oh, actually,
Get a second there?
I just had a question about the personnel survey from the consent agenda. I just had a question about it. So I
Okay.
don't know.
So we can have, if I can get a second, we can have discussion.
I'll second that.
All right.
It's really just a question regarding the personnel survey summary, the personnel summary. And it's just a question that, it's just an issue that I brought up that came to light that we might want to discuss or bring about another time. And it's probably an oversight that I'm not noticing, but it's regarding the coaching, the spring coaches, and not accounting for co-ed sports, meaning swimming and track. There's a major discrepancy in what we're paying for coaches, for boys coaches versus girls coaches, and that just seemed to me a pretty, a Title IX consideration that,
That's probably something to bring up at another time.
Okay. Well, just for the record, it's just something that came to light for me that I would like to focus on at another time or perhaps bring to light.
Okay, so you're all right with it on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is a roll call?
Rogelio?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye. All righty. We'll move on to, we have a student here tonight? No student, okay. So we'll move on to Jamie's report.
Good evening. Nice to see so many people here, and glad we have some interpretation or translation for our families who speak Spanish. So there's a lot going on in the district, and we are happy to report that we're making our way down the to-do list. Jay Hotchner, co-chair of the District Safety Committee, met with school office staff and site principals on Friday, February 10th, after an escape training with Maureen, to review our visitor protocol and procedures, and distributed supplies for the sites to implement those procedures on February 21st. The community should expect new procedures, and site principals will be communicating them with parents next week. Many thanks to Jay for spearheading this initiative, as well as the Ingress-Egress initiative last school year and the mental health initiative currently in progress with our Director of Special Education. I am pleased to report that according to the California Healthy Kids Survey results we just received this weekend, 86% of students feel safe at school all of the time, some or all of the time. In the district-wide staff survey that 135 staff members filled out, 95% of the staff feel that school is a safe place for students. So those are great numbers. For the public's awareness, prior to the 2015-16 school year, board cover pages attached to the agenda items was a regular practice in the district. With the new superintendent in 2015-16, the practice was eliminated, but as of tonight's meeting, with the agenda posted last week, we have reinstituted this practice with the same format we had used before in 2015-16. The purpose of the cover pages is to be completely transparent with the public about the items for consideration during board meetings and allow folks to have relevant background. Gerardo Cornejo, Mari Hornback, Maureen Fitzgerald, and I attended the County Education Office's training on February 6th in Buellton for the new LCAP format, as well as the data dashboard made available by the state. Once the dashboard is made public, we will post a link on our district website so that community members can search data on their local school district. The writing team and I began our weekly 3-hour meetings last Friday to complete the new LCAP draft, and we'll bring that to various stakeholder groups, including site-level staff, parent groups, school site councils, ELAC meetings, and the community meeting, which I hope everyone comes out to on March 16th at 6 p.m. at the high school with simultaneous interpretation. There's an important District English Language Advisory Committee, often referred to as DLAC, on March 23rd, facilitated by high school principal Gerardo Cornejo. And we have also reached out to CAUSE leadership, the bargaining unit, to schedule a meeting with them for feedback as well. Our district leadership team meets every 2 weeks, and we will be reviewing the LCAP during every meeting. We continue to look forward to Transitional Kindergarten and Kindergarten Information Night on March 2nd at Carpinteria Community Church Hall at 6 p.m. The event will also be simultaneously interpreted. TK and kindergarten registration begins on March 6th. I also want to mention Sonia Aguila, second grade teacher at Canalino, has been the host of a weekly Saturday radio show called Festival Infantil. She's probably in the room. It airs from 8 to 10 a.m. on Radio Bronco 107.7, and sometimes her children, Adrian and Natalie, are part of the live show. Sonia is also a columnist for El Latino newspaper in the education section, and Sonia does a lot of work for our district in helping our Spanish-speaking parents learn more about what's going on in their school district. So I just wanted to recognize her for all that work she does. And finally, from Carpinteria Middle School, Friday we will have students start participating in field activities. I think she probably means Thursday, and are hoping to encourage this and prepare them for track and field. We are meeting with teachers to make preparations for the upcoming California Academic Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, CASP. We had the spelling bee at the Masonic Temple last week, and we had a good parent attendance with the Willpower Won't Power meeting for Parents Through Girls, Inc. The middle school is hard at work on the master schedule for next year to include more electives and other opportunities for CMS students. And that is my report.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we have some public comment.
The first public comment is Tina Contreras.
Hi. I was just speaking on behalf of Rincon High School for the staff. My son has attended there. He's a senior now. He's been there since he was in, I think, the ending of 10th grade. And he went to Carpinteria High School for several years, struggled, didn't get the backing from the school, from the teachers there. It was just a constant emailing the teachers back and forth. He did have an IEP plan in place, didn't even really get the help on that. At first, I was not really supporting him going to Rincon. But once we got there, it was probably the best decision that I could have made for my son's education. All the staff there is very loving, very supportive of the kids. They give the kids, the students, the one-on-one that a lot of students do need, that are not able to focus and do their classwork or homework without that extra push, and Rincon does offer that. Part of not only my son's success, but other students is Cruz. She's the administrator in the office. She's been there for many years, and she is a big part of my son's success. And by letting her go is going to, I think, set the kids, the students, up to not be as successful. And making any changes to the school as it stands is not going, it's not going to be successful. I think you're just setting up the kids to not succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jerry Dayhill.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of the staff for Rincon Foothill this evening, and I've been at the school 6 years, but we did a little math earlier, and between Cruz, Mr. Reed, myself, Marlo Stoops, and Emma Edrington, we have about 62 years together as combined years serving that school. I've served at the middle school and Summerlin School also. And so as we look at this proposal to cut classified staff, Cruz and Emma Edrington as a certificated, change is difficult. And when we're faced with change, we react with emotion, and we react as a family does. And so in a sense, our school really works like a team. We feel like a family. And so as we're looking at this proposal, we see it as being broken up, and that doesn't feel good. And so I'd like to speak on behalf of the teachers, the staff, and the students. Cruz has been the heart and soul of Rincon and Foothill for 20 years. She is the person that many students are greeted with first, especially those kids who have trouble getting to school on time. And so she's there checking in with the kids, looking at them. Are their eyes clear? Are they ready to come to school? And then when we have staff meetings, which we do pretty much regularly every day, we discuss students one by one, individually. And Cruz is involved in that, and she gives insights to us as teachers and to the counselors that work with the students. She's much more than an office coordinator. She's much more than that. It goes way beyond doing all the clerical things that she does, which she does very well. For our proposal for a full-time teacher to be let go, we as teachers rely on one another. There have always been 3 teachers at Rincon, at least as far as I know, and we're able to provide better individualized instruction and specialized instruction when there are more teachers. If there's 2 teachers, they're going to get less of that expertise. And so right now we're offering math, science, history, and English all in our fields of expertise. And so that would change, and that would be detrimental to the students. So I tried to bring I guess I'll end this on that my warning sign there with a little bit of a word picture. And so you rarely see a redwood grow alone. And so if we think of ourselves because of the root systems, if the wind comes, a redwood tree has very shallow roots, they'll fall over. So they rely on one another to hold each other up. And these proposals feel like, even though we're a small grove there at Rincon, it feels like we're going to have some of our root system pulled away and our structure is going to be weakened, and we don't want that to happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's it.
And could I make a motion?
There's that was just comment.
A comment? Okay.
Yeah.
A comment. Last budget session, we had it at 1 p.m., and that made it very hard for some of you to show up. And I would like to recommend that, because what we did, it was just a recommendation for layoffs based on the district's budget. And I would like to recommend, this is not, it's still not final. If I'm not mistaken, in April, we're going to take the final vote, correct?
At the budget study session, the only thing that staff was directed to do was build a base budget based on those recommendations. It will come back to you more than one more time to have a discussion about what is in, what is out, the forecast for next year, as well as you'll have to have in other actions and motions any reductions done through the personnel action part of the agenda.
Yes, I would like to make the recommendation that we, if we could have it between 5 and 6, so that a lot of you could have a chance
Well,
to
it will,
express your
the
opinion.
next budget will be presented at our regular meeting.
Okay.
It'll be
All right.
scheduled at a regular meeting.
So the advice that I can give is show up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item E4, the appointment of Principal Gerardo Cornejo to the Adult Education Block Grant Consortium.
So moved.
Any
Second.
discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, item E5 is the Measure U Independent Bond Oversight Committee annual report, and we have Mary Beth Carty here. Welcome.
Thank you, President Schaefer. Good evening, members of the board, Ms. Pursoon, staff. I'm Mary Beth Carty, and on behalf of the Carpinteria Unified School District's Measure U Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, it's my pleasure as chairperson to present the committee's 2016 annual report. As you will recall, in November of 2014, Carpinteria voters passed Measure U by over 66%, authorizing up to $90 million in bonds to address the district's facility, infrastructure, and technology needs. In accordance with Prop 39, an independent oversight committee was established representing specific identified interests. You may also recall at your March 10th, 2015 meeting, the Carpinteria Unified School District's Governing Board reviewed applications and selected the following to serve on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Christy Cooney, representing parents and parent groups, Aaron Lent, representing taxpayers organizations, Clyde Freeman as a parent rep, Wally Burquez as community at large rep, Paul Foley, representing senior citizens, and Paul Patine, community at large, as well as myself representing business. This committee is charged with providing objective oversight of expenditures and verifying to the very best of our knowledge that bond revenues have been expended only for the purposes so described in Measure U, and also to publish an annual report, which you'll find before you. We have additional copies up front if anyone cares to peruse it. Over a total of 7 meetings since the first convening in 2015, the committee has been provided detailed information by the district's management and staff concerning Measure U progress and expenditures, including the most recent financial reports, updated project expenditure summaries, general project construction updates, and communication plans related to the various projects identified in the 2014 bond. The committee has reviewed the 2016 report for both financial and performance audits for the Measure U Bond Fund, which was prepared by independent auditors Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim, who are certified public accountants. And that report affirms that funds were properly accounted for and utilized in project-based expenses only. I'd like to acknowledge the thoughtful and active participation of all the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee members and the diligent work of the district staff and project management team, including Cindy Abbott as the facilities coordinator, David Weniger, who is the director of facilities, Lena Placencia, who is a planning specialist, and Beverly Rodriguez, accounting tech. The agenda, minutes, all reports for Measure U Citizens Bond Oversight Committee meetings, including this annual report, are all posted online, available in both English and Spanish, along with upcoming projects and exciting plans at all the campuses referenced in the facilities master plan. You can go directly to carpmeasureu.com to get this information, or you can also get it through our CUSD.net site. Measure U is an important investment in our schools and ultimately our students. Our deepest thanks go out to the voters who've made these improvements possible and for your trust and confidence in the process of responsibly expending these funds. If you have any questions about individual internal audit components, I would refer those to Cindy Abbott. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Just thank you and the committee for all that you're doing.
We have the easy part.
And thanks especially, just it's amazing to get this Citizens Committee up and going, and thank you for your commitment. And this is a really beautifully done report, I have to say. It's very clear and thoughtful, so it doesn't come from nowhere. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to...
This requires action, actually.
Oh, it does? Oh, okay.
I move that we accept the 2016 annual report of the Measure U Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to E6, contract. This is approving a contract for simultaneous interpretation with Bridging Voices. The cost for the services is $1,650 and will be paid for with district general unrestricted funds.
I just wanted to add that that's also including interpretation of the community meeting, as I mentioned in my report, and the TKK meeting. That cost is included in the $1,650.
Is it 1650 or 1750?
She's going to check. 1650, she says.
Okay, thank you.
And I know I read this, but I've been sick, so I can't. This is for all board meetings?
This is for board meetings through June 2017.
Okay.
3 hours, 2 hours?
So this is a contract projected amount. It's an hourly rate. So we're projecting a 3-hour board meeting, I believe, on each one. Sometimes they go over and sometimes they go under. So it could come a little different than that, but that's the projected amount.
Does this group, did you encounter anything about printed material translation through this organization, or is that a completely separate issue?
If the board chooses to direct us to get information like that, we can certainly get that.
Just because I think it's like if we have the translation, it's great, but if our materials aren't translated as well, and especially because all materials that get given to students have to be translated, I still don't quite understand why I think it makes sense that our board materials, or at least the agenda and the agenda at least be translated as well.
Yeah, because I've been checking the website, and the Spanish translation is brief.
Okay, well, let's stick to the item on the agenda here, and we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Do we have a motion in a second?
We
No.
moved yet.
We don't.
We-
No.
We didn't. Oh,
I
sorry.
move to approve this contract for simultaneous interpretation.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Can I ask that? How do I ask that we look
can,
into?
at future agenda items
Okay.
at the end of the meeting.
So printed translation.
Okay, we'll move. So we'll move on to E7, Resolution 17-800.
I just want to mention we do have a speaker slip on this one.
Oh, we do. Okay,
Yes.
let's
Should we read it
Anna
first
Delgado?
out loud?
Do you want the speaker now? Sorry.
let's read the resolution. You want to read it, Michelle?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Okay.
I've got it right here if you want.
Or you can read it,
Do
Maureen,
you- yeah.
if you have it.
Sure. This is the memo. You mean the background information?
No, just
No,
the
the
resolution.
Oh, just the resolution. Is that the italicized part?
No, it's.
Okay, maybe I'm looking at something else.
I got it.
The resolution in support of students.
The whereas.
Whereas.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I
So-
didn't print that out.
I can read it. So this is a resolution in support of students in the Carpinteria Unified School District. Whereas the Carpinteria Unified School District has a mission dedicated to the success of each student and is committed to serving all students without regard to race, ethnicity, religion, national origin, immigration status, age, gender, language, socioeconomic status, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, medical condition or disability, and while we are going through a contentious political period, our nation has gone through tumultuous times in the past, and ultimately we will come together. Our children and our community depend on it. Whereas our ongoing commitment to our community's children is that their schools are a safe place for them and for their families, no matter their immigration, religious, gender, and ability status. A place where words and actions cannot and should not harm who they are. A place where each day provides them the opportunity to work with other students and adults so that each one of them can continue to mature and develop into outstanding leaders and contributors to the community. A place where they are cared for by adults and peers who listen to their needs, understand who they are, and support who they want to become. Whereas as a school district community, we stand together and continually work to create a positive culture where every person is respected and valued, an environment where rich dialogue is encouraged amongst our students and staff, but the discourse does not harm a person's identity or well-being, where no election result changes our commitment to all of our students, and our students can depend on district staff to model and maintain an environment where they can flourish. Whereas, as a board, we invite parents, neighbors, and those committed to supporting our community's children to work collaboratively with us as we continue to empower them to reach their full potential as responsible, ethical, and productive citizens in a diverse and changing world. Therefore, let it be resolved that as a school district, we will continue to welcome and support children from all backgrounds, including those from undocumented families. We'll protect the confidentiality of information we have about our students and families, and will keep immigration authorities off our campuses to the fullest extent provided by law.
Great. So we have a motion?
I move that we approve
All right.
the resolution.
I second it.
Any
Second.
discussion?
No.
All right.
Public
We
comment.
still have public
Oh, we
comment.
do, sorry.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone in the room. My name is Anna Delgado. It's been 26 days since our president-elect was inaugurated to serve as president of the United States. But it's been years upon years upon years by which we have seen endless and wrongful treatment towards undocumented people and students, many of which are my friends or people I consider family. In these first 26 days, I have never feared more for these friends and families because it seems they can't go a day without hearing racial slurs, threats that are by no means necessary, or hearing they are less deserving of receiving one of the most basic and fundamental American principles in education. As of now, well, it does change now, but I don't know if Carpinteria is a sanctuary city, nor do I know if my school district is a safety zone for these undocumented families. But what I do know is, 1, ICE has already made its presence known in LA and Santa Barbara, and 2, numerous cities and school districts have already declared themselves sanctuary cities or school safety zones. I know this doesn't directly affect me because I was born here, but in a way, it does. People who I hold near to my heart don't have the same luxury of knowing they are going to school or work and returning home that same day. In these 26 days, I have seen people be degraded into something less than human, something less deserving of sympathy, something less deserving of love. Now, I'm not saying the people who are, working for immigration or performing these deportations think this way or perpetuate this message. I mean, they're just trying to make a living, but hey, so are these people. As a daughter of immigrants, a student, and a citizen of Carpinteria, I've interacted and have come to fully know that we are equal. We just hold different stories. Publicly labeling ourselves as a sanctuary city and a school zone and adopting this resolution will alleviate the worries of these families and will let those people know who perpetuate hate and flat-out disrespect that we, Carpinteria, believe in equal opportunity and education for everybody. Because solos somos fuertes, juntos somos más fuertes. And essentially that means together we are strong, or by ourselves we are strong, and together we are stronger. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I make a comment on it?
Yeah.
Sure.
This takes me back to the 70s, and I was 14 years old, and was attending Carpenter High School. Was I stopped on my way to high school by INS? Yes. Was I asked for a green card? Yes. Was I questioned about my legal status? Yes. Was I questioned about if I was attending school? Yes. Was I questioned about the name of my teachers? Yes. So this can happen. This can happen, and the advice that I can give to everybody is that we can probably not stop it completely, but make it not make it that hard. We can act together, and basically what's going on right now, as of last night, Channel 3 News, ICE, yes, confirmed that last week they arrested and deported 4 people from Santa Maria, 3 for Lompoc, and 7 from Ventura County. And this ICE, the reason for it is that there is an ICE office that just opened up last June in Santa Maria, and up to it's been on the independent. Up to today, 500 people have been deported. That's why it's very important that it doesn't matter what race we are. It doesn't matter if we come from England or whatever. Just be careful and do not overreact, and above all, behave. And the step that we have taken now, all 5 of us, it's symbolic. And I just think all I have to say is thanks to the board, thanks to the district for supporting this resolution, and we hope that the city council. I don't know what happened yesterday, but it was on the agenda for Carbondale to become a sanctuary city, and that's something that I would say that we are behind other cities, but we can catch up. And thank you all for showing up.
Thank you, Rogelio.
And I just want to also kind of reiterate Roger's support for this resolution, and also say, as someone who's married to an immigrant from someone who came from someplace else, I think it's important that we make a stand, and not on a political front necessarily, because I think it's dangerous sometimes for districts to try and wade too much into politics, but mostly just to say to our teachers and our staff that classrooms are for teaching and for learning, and they have to be safe spaces where everyone feels welcome in order for learning to happen, and that we shouldn't turn school administrators or teachers, we shouldn't put them in the position of having to, worry about the status, the immigration status of people, so which has happened in the past, like you said. So I think it's important that we just clarify for our district and our community that we want to provide a safe space.
Yep, that's the goal. Thank you.
Can I get a roll call?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
And I'm aye.
Thank you. All righty. We'll move on to a presentation on the dual language immersion program.
So we're here to present to you about dual language immersion 1 year later, give or take, tonight. And I know a lot of people are here tonight for that, so I want to thank everyone who's taking an active interest in participating in their public school district. That's really great. I also want to mention before I start that I have all of the site administrators here hiding in the back. So if you have any questions for them, this is a proposal supported by the entire leadership team of Carpinteria Unified School District, not one administrator, but all administrators together. So I wanted to make that very clear. So this is just a little history for anyone just tuning in to dual language immersion. At the school year 2014-15, 2 years ago, there was a long ongoing discussion about dual language immersion at Catalino School. It started. Actually, this was an organic teacher-driven effort, continues to be a teacher-driven effort. And we had a discussion as a staff and waited until we had 100% of the staff agreeing to pursue this idea that we moved forward. In school year 2015-16, the dual language immersion master plan Maestro, was written by the writing committee with the contract with Dr. Carlos Pagan for guidance and support. And Dr. Pagan is here tonight as well, and he's available for questions as we go through this. We held multiple interest sessions for parents in both Spanish and English. And on October 27th, 2015, the board approved in the consent agenda the services of Dr. Pagan to go through the development of the master plan. On February 9th was the first reading of the plan. February 22nd, the second reading, and the decision was tabled until after March 14th, which was a budget study session. On March the 8th, the item was discussed with no action taken. March 22nd, the item was discussed, no action taken. And on April 12th, the directive to the staff was to establish a district committee in 2016-17 to review the program for 2017-18 implementation. So we followed directives, and we had a district dual language advisory committee, which was initially to be held by the Director of Educational Services, but because of other changes in the district, it was led by me. The dates of the meeting were October 19th, November 29th, and January 17th. We had representatives from Aliso School, Catalino School, Carpinteria High School, Carpinteria Middle School, District Office, After School Program, Westmont College, and parents from the community. The discussions at the meetings were why dual language immersion, the proposed model in the master plan, which is a 90-10 model. 90% of the instruction is in Spanish or the target language, and 10% in English in the kindergarten year. We'll go into that a little more. A lot of discussion around class size, which was an issue that came up repeatedly last year. The site or sites that would host the initial program. The staffing and professional development question, and the anticipated challenges with implementing a new program. So the question of why dual language immersion, and there are copies of the master plan here for the public to take, and copies of the PowerPoint, and copies of some more recent publications of research around dual language immersion, but is to promote high academic achievement of all students and close the achievement gap, to achieve true bilingualism and biliteracy for participating students, increase culturally responsive teaching throughout the schools, foster and promote cultural diversity and respect among students and their families, and promote a sense of unity throughout our community. So that's pulled directly from the master plan. So some of the benefits of dual language immersion throughout the master plan, which is a pretty lengthy document, there's a lot of reference to the research on dual language immersion. And in fact, I just saw an article today from the California Teachers Association with similar research that it cited in their publication as well. The additive bilingual immersion setting allows all students to learn 2 languages simultaneously without losing one language in order to learn another, which is something that we see happen in our schools with the English-only immersion model, that students that are immersed into English are beginning to lose their Spanish, their native Spanish, and that starts to affect their connections with their families as they go forward. Second language learning enhances comprehension in the native language. So the comprehension and the building blocks of reading skills complement one another in both languages. The mental discipline of learning a second language system increases intellectual flexibility and translates into higher achievement in all subject areas. The longer the exposure to the second language, the more significant the cognitive advantages are to the student. And knowledge of more than one language enables people to communicate in a variety of cultures and settings. A heightened level of multicultural awareness and communication skills foster intergroup contact and appreciation. Second language course content naturally explores social studies, math, science, and the arts, facilitating interdisciplinary perspectives and cross-cultural understanding. Proficiency in other languages enables learners to gain direct access to additional sources of knowledge, as well as understanding about the similarities and differences between the structures of languages that they know. And students studying 2 languages have more positive self-concept and are more likely to remain in school and attend college than English learners in mainstream English classes. So there's a lot of discussion about how wonderful it would be if our English-only population could learn to speak Spanish as well. But really the impetus for this program came from wanting to address the achievement gap in our English learners. So you received a presentation from Bob Keating in the fall looking at our English learner achievement numbers, which while they were better than Santa Barbara and Ventura's, were still quite low. So we do have an existing achievement gap in Carpinteria Unified that we need to address some way and somehow. This might be one way that we deal with it, but certainly not all of it. So research and practice show that English learner students in a dual language program do not reach a plateau in their literacy like they do in traditional English programs. That's what we call the long-term English learner. English learners, students in DLI programs, easily grow past this phase thanks to their strong native language literacy. Immersion helps close the achievement gap between English learners and their English-only counterparts. Research shows that English learners have a higher rate of success in immersion education versus English mainstream. This is because students have maximum access to the content in the curriculum, and the opportunity to develop literacy and academic skills in both their native language and English in an instructional setting that values both languages and cultures. So this is a graph. This is also straight from the plan showing different types of bilingual education. So we're going to talk in a minute about a lot of terms that have been tossed around in the paper and what's going on. Bilingual education is a very large umbrella term. It is not synonymous with dual language immersion. So if you look what the blue diamond is the achievement of English learners over the grade spans when they are in a two-way immersion program. They have the highest achievement. In fact, they exceed the achievement of a native English speaker. And then you can see the other types of programs below. ESL, which is our traditional type of program that we do, you can see actually they really take a nosedive in the upper grades in terms of their achievement. So none of the programs, with the exception of late exit bilingual content ESL, even approach the English only achievement, and two-way immersion is the only one that exceeds. This is for English learners. So now we're going to get to Proposition 58, and I'm going to have Dr. Pagan come on up. So I want to make it very clear that Proposition 58 is this year that came about and was voted on in November. Dual language immersion discussion started in 2014, well preceding Proposition 58. Dual language immersion tonight is not Carpenter Unified School District's response to Proposition 58. That is a much, much larger can of worms that we are going to need to respond to, but this is not; those things are not synonymous.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Carlos Pagan. I'm the Director for Literacy and Language Support for the Santa Barbara County Education Office. And for the past 3 years, I have been working with several dual language programs in our county, most recently with Jimenez Elementary in Santa Maria Bonita. And I also have a personal and professional connection to dual language programs. I had my own son in a dual language program in the Napa Unified School District, and I was also principal of a dual language immersion school. So I come from different backgrounds in terms of this topic. But I'm just going to say a little bit about Proposition 58, the California Education for a Global Economy. So that's the title of the proposition. As you know, it was approved this past November overwhelmingly. We'd say all counties in the state of California passed the proposition. And I wanted just to share some highlights about the proposition. First and most exciting, I think, is that it opens the opportunities for all students to be involved in second language programs. So we have native speakers as well as English learners that are encouraged to enroll and participate in these programs with the goal of bilingual and biliteracy, something that, as you know, many other countries already provide for their students, especially in Europe and in other places in Asia as well. So that is, I think, one of the main sort of points and some of the advantages of this proposition. So what are some of the other details? And the regulations are currently being worked out by the California Department of Education, but what we know from the proposition is that, first, it must be included in the stakeholder engagement discussions in your LCAP. So that is something that the proposition from at the very beginning is asking us to do. Second is that if there are requests from 20 parents from that grade level or 30 parents from that same school, that the opportunity to enroll their children in second language programs be study and assess to the extent possible, provide them as the district is able to. But one of the things, too, that is very important to keep in mind is that while there's some different programs that are mentioned in terms of providing this opportunity, that the goal is eventually for the students to be bilingual, biliterate. So we have to be very careful on what types of opportunities we provide, because not all will lead to this bilingualism, biliteracy that we're looking for. As mentioned earlier, dual language programs are one way to do this, and we see that bilingualism and biliteracy begins to be something that students reach by the end of 5th grade and entering middle school. So it is something that is specifically mentioned in the law, dual language programs. Other things that are included is that when considering a request from the community, that people who know something about the programs are involved in the development of the program. And that's probably because of something that happened a while back where we had different ways of implementing bilingual education that sometimes didn't lead to second language learning, or it might have led to other outcomes and not always positive ones. So we want to make sure that people who know a little bit about the field are involved in the initial development of the programs. Let's see, what else? Yeah, those are pretty much some of the main points of Proposition 58. I believe that we are here in Carpinteria ahead and being very proactive with the development of a program. It has followed pretty much what I think this law states, and I believe that that's what the regulation will also call for. So, thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Pagan while he's up here?
Question?
It's a comment. Yeah, it's well explained, well written, but I've heard 2 times that state regulations we don't have them. We don't have them yet, right?
The regulations
we'll get them until spring, late spring.
Right, the regulations are being developed, but I believe that they will follow pretty much what's is stated in the current language of the law. There will just be some clarification. For example, when a request comes in by parents, by 20 parents from a grade level or 30 parents from a school, the law states now to the extent possible. So to the extent, so what does that mean if we have a request for Russian or Japanese or a language that's really difficult to find the staff or the personnel to implement? So those are kinds of the questions that are going to be probably addressed in the regulation.
Yes, so dual language immersion is one option.
Mm-hmm.
But we may have 2 or 3. Correct?
Right. So there are there are a variety of options, but what the law states is that the option chosen should lead to literacy in that second language. And right now, in terms of the options that I've seen so far, and what research shows is that dual language is the option that leads to that.
That's the word that I have heard probably 3 or 4 times. Research, theory, not facts. Correct?
The research is based on, for example, I conducted through my dissertation a research project at the school that I was at. And so the research is based on the practice, so the data is collected in the actual field. And so there's also been some meta-analysis of different programs where data is collected and then analyzed by Dr. Catherine Lindholm out of San Jose State University.
Because the way I see it is that this is a huge project, and I think it's okay for I would say a bigger district like Oxnard, even Santa Barbara, New Jersey, New York, but we're struggling with the budget, and.
Yeah, so on that note, I'd like to know a little bit more about the program that you were principal of in Napa, and then also the school in Santa Maria that you referred to. Are those complete immersion schools? Or are they just classes in the school?
So in Napa, Westwood Elementary began with a school within a school, so it was a strand of that, and then eventually became an entire school. That's because of the popularity of the program, the requests. So when I arrived,
is Napa School District?
Pardon me?
How big is the school district in
It's
Napa?
about 16,000 students.
Okay.
So eventually the entire school, again, because of the popularity and the requests that were coming in. So when I arrived as principal in 1999, the school was already implementing a whole school-wide program. So, and we had 5 kindergarten classes, and all were full, and with a wait list of close to 50 to 100 students every year. So, and in Santa Maria Bonita, Jimenez Elementary School is also a strand within the school. That school is about 800 to 900 students right now, and they have 2 kindergarten classes that began a year ago. So
But are they they're drawing from outside their enrollment area, right?
They have a very detailed policy about sort of enrollment in the program. So they have reserved, and I have to double check that, but some spots for neighborhood kids, and then they have also opened it up to district families as well.
Are either one of those charter schools?
No. Well, Jimenez is, and Napa did become a charter school. It's a conversion school. And mostly because of Proposition 227.
I see. Okay. But like, let's say that down the road, parents start asking, well, I want the state states not this option, so we want that one. For example, we don't know that if dual language is going to work or not. And because I've been getting a lot of emails. I'm the only Hispanic in the board, and I go to people's houses. I spend a lot of time with them, and this is their concern.
This, Dr. Pagan, you could probably speak to this too, but I actually did some research of my own on Proposition 58 because I wanted to clarify, and I just want to read, it's just a short paragraph of what we actually voted on, because just a little background, it repeals Proposition 227.
Correct.
Which actually outlawed bilingual education. Proposition 58 was passed in the fall with 73% of the vote. It was yes on 58 raised $4.95 million, and it had $1.7 million from the California Teachers Association. So basically, it was funded in large part by the Teachers Association itself. And Proposition 58 actually reads, this is all from Ballotpedia for what it's worth, that Proposition 58, the number one first thing, preserves the requirement that public schools ensure students obtain English language proficiency. So that's just up front. Like English is still up there as, the number one language. Then it goes on, requires school districts to solicit parent/community input in developing language acquisition programs. So it puts the onus on the community to come up with the programs it wants. It requires instruction to ensure English acquisition as rapidly and as effectively as possible, and it authorizes school districts to establish dual language immersion programs for both native and non-native English speakers. Fiscal impact, no notable fiscal impact. So that was on the ballot, and I think it's really clear that we all kind of have that as a starting point.
Yeah, but I think Jamie said at the very beginning
Absolutely.
of the presentation that this DLI is not in response to Prop 58.
Absolutely, but I think we have to consider it. I almost feel like Carpentry is sort of ahead of the ball game, because we had a community grassroots program that was sort of bubbling up from the community, and now this Prop 58, I think, ideally we'll build on that, but they're separate but related, the way I see it anyways.
So I wonder if any other questions for Dr. Pagan, because we're not quite done with the presentation.
I have a question. Can you share with us your experience? You said that the program that you've experienced with started as a program within the school, and then it grew into the entire school. Can you share with your experience how you phased in staff, how you recruited staff, phased in staff, and then phased out staff who are not qualified to teach bilingual or dual immersion?
So in the early grades, K2, through retirements and attrition, we made sure that we filled those positions with teachers that had bilingual endorsements. We also worked really closely with Sonoma State to make sure that their teachers that needed student teaching would come to our school, especially those teachers that were bilingual. So we hire from that group as well. We also, when there was any type of opening, we saw that other district teachers who wanted to be in the dual language program would often request a transfer to that. To our school. So we never had and we make sure that we grew only as as the capacity allowed. So we wouldn't offer the spots unless we had, the staff to do that.
And were you working closely with the teachers union to do this?
Everyone was at the table. Yes, we worked very closely with them.
And sorry, just to follow up on that, with Prop 58, do you anticipate a recruitment issue for qualified teachers?
Well, what I know so far is that there's a teacher...
even without Prop 58.
Yeah, we have a teacher shortage in California, right? And so to the extent that that's also affecting bilingual teachers, I'm not sure, but I assume so. But again, programs don't grow unless they have the capacity by the staff to grow.
So what will happen, let's say, to a teacher who doesn't have a bilingual credential?
Well, I mean, what could happen, especially in 4th and 5th grade, is that when we get to 4th and 5th grade, we have 50-50 a split. So that teacher could be the English model for that 50% of the time, and then we have a Spanish-speaking teacher that could be the model for the 50. So we don't, in upper grades, doesn't necessarily have to be bilingual teachers.
Let's go ahead and finish the presentation, and then we can continue with questions afterwards.
Thank you, President Schaefer. So as I spoke about earlier, bilingual education is kind of a large umbrella term for a variety of things that you saw on that graph, that it's implemented in various ways and will be much more so now with the passage of Proposition 58, since it's kind of diminished since Proposition 227. And we are expecting that more people will pursue the BCLAD, the bilingual credential, than they had before, because for the last 10 or 12 years with Prop 227, it wasn't, purposeful or lucrative for them to do that. There's also several terms I just wanted everyone to be aware of. A student who is learning English is called an English learner. They take what's called the California English Language Development Test on a yearly basis. That's called the CELT, which is being replaced by the LPAC, and that's the English Learner Proficiency Assessment. I forgot the C, I'm sorry.
Conundrum.
And then once a student is determined to be fluent in English according to the assessment, they are considered a redesignated fluent English proficient student, which we refer to as RFEPs. When we bring data to you regularly, our RFEP subgroup often outperforms our English-only subgroup because there are very, very advanced English learners. So by law, even before Proposition 58, we are required to provide English language development to our students. So when we talk about this, what our proposal is, you'll see that English language development is part of the proposal, not just dual language immersion. There's also the notion of language enrichment, where you're really not trying to make somebody fully bilingual or biliterate, but enrich them and expose them to a different language through various instructional means. Somebody can be bilingual, which is not the same as being biliterate, being able to read and write in the second language, or multicultural, as well as multilingual, multiliterate, and multicultural. So that should have said bicultural. So dual language immersion is also dual language instruction. They're the same thing as one another. What you're talking about when you talk about something different is a form of bilingual education, which is not the same as dual language immersion or instruction. The target language in dual language immersion is the language you want students to acquire. In this case, it's Spanish, but in other cases, it's Mandarin or French. This is very, very popular in Canada. There are programs all over Canada with dual language immersion, and oftentimes the language is not Spanish. And the percent of the instruction in the target language is 90% for this program in kindergarten, and the percent in English is 10%. So the committee's recommendation, this is coming from the Dual Language Immersion Committee, is 2 kindergarten classes to start at Catalino School. at the meeting, physically present at the meeting, were 3 teachers eager to teach kindergarten next year. The 90-10 model is recommended per the master plan. And the class size is 24. The suggested class size is 24 with room to add after 3rd grade for bilingual students. And I'm going to have Maureen speak to why the 24. And she's not here, so I'll have her come back to that. A lottery system to admit the students, which is outlined in the master plan. Darlene was attending our dual language immersion meetings as well to speak to the HR and some of Jacqueline's questions. So I'm going to have her talk about those things right there for those 3 bullets.
Good evening. So regarding the professional development for current teachers, some of the Aliso teachers were also present at the meeting on January 17th and had asked what professional development would they be provided if they were to grow beyond Canalino. And they were interested in visiting the teachers at Canalino if and when this goes through, and also visiting other districts that some of the people that developed the master plan had visited prior to in 15-16 school year. So we agreed that we would allow that because that allows them to see the dual language immersion program in action and how the students respond and how the teachers are instructing the curriculum. Regarding the incentivized BCLAD for current staff, we had agreed, and I don't want to say agreed, but we had talked about providing some kind of incentivization for our teachers who do not hold the BCLAD currently, but that would allow them to go to classes or take some exams to allow them to obtain the BCLAD, should they be interested in teaching that moving forward. All of the funds that would come, that would be allocated towards that would be Title I, Title II, and Title III, so it wouldn't come out of general funds. The exploratory committee at Aliso School, that's to speak to the teachers that were there. We had 2 of our kindergarten teachers that were there at this meeting. I understand their hesitancy, but I also appreciated their interest. And I think they just need a little bit more professional development and seeing the plan and seeing how the program works in the classrooms and how the students respond to it as well.
So Maureen, can you speak to why 24?
Yes. So as was noted when we brought our unaudited actuals and we had that audit finding, the LCFF, local control funding formula, requires that we maintain a grade span average of 24-1 in K3. And while we don't receive the LCFF dollars, we're still held to that requirement. So regardless of dual language or traditional instruction, we have to have K3 at 24.
Is there a question on that?
I have a question, but it may be addressed later. So just
Okay.
I know at some point that the question of attrition had been.
Mm-hmm.
So are you going to get to that at some point, or?
I don't think I addressed it, but I'm going
Okay.
to call Dr. Pagan up because he can
Okay.
speak to that particularly.
Just attrition as the grades progress of students dropping out of the program. Do you end up with 6th grades that or 4th grades that are tiny, and how do you deal with that?
My experience over a 5-year period when I was principal of Napa Valley Language Academy is that attrition was very low.
Okay.
It's something that it's really stressed at the beginning, that we want parents and families that could be in the program for at least through 6th grade because the school was K6. And when there are situations that no one expected, and there is a vacancy, and if it's early enough, either K or 1, we would fill that position with our waiting list. So there's always a waiting list. If it's beyond 1st grade, we try to then fill the position with students who have had some command of the Spanish language. We were beginning to see that a lot of students were coming in from other dual language schools. So because in that area we had Davis, we had there are programs in that area, Sonoma. There are a variety of programs, and so and locally we in addition to the schools that I mentioned, we also have a school in the Lompoc Unified School District that has a dual language program, and then also Adelante, which is a charter school in Santa Barbara. It's dual language, and number of programs in the Oxnard area as well. So possibility that those spots could be beyond first grade could be filled with students who have been in a dual language program. If that's not the case, then we try to again to have replace or fill the spot with students who have some or are native Spanish speakers or have some Spanish background.
You just made me realize how many dual language Spanish English immersion schools are there in California?
Right now, they're probably close to 500.
Wow.
And there's a complete list. And I would say 90% of them is Spanish English, but they will also have Korean and French and
Mandarin.
Yeah. And San Francisco is one of the cities that's leading the way with a variety of programs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, in fact, the article that I read today from CTA talked about the explosive nature of dual language programs, especially this period of time in this year after the Proposition 58 passage, which kind of spurred that along as well. Did you have a question, Michelle?
I did have a question about the stipend incentive. So I understand you could use Title 1 and 3 for the professional development incentive to get the B-CLAD, but is there talk about an ongoing stipend for those teaching in that program? And if so, isn't that a negotiated item?
Well, as far as the stipend for a negotiated item, if we were to have somebody be like a co-curricular department chair, is that what you're referring to?
No, just because in the article you sent, actually, it says, it's actually harder to teach dual language immersion, and so we would just keep them on the regular salary schedule? Is that the plan?
If they earn a B-CLAD, they do get a $1,000 stipend, and that's on the salary schedule.
A one time or
yearly?
Yearly.
Okay. So we have that already on our
Yes.
salary schedules. Okay.
So this is a graphic from the plan just about how the languages work. So you can see in kindergarten you're immersing students into Spanish with 90% of the time. And then it lessens or the English increases until you get to, as Dr. Pagan was speaking to, 4th and 5th grade, where it's 50-50, and you can have two different teachers, one teaching the English sections of the day and one teaching the Spanish. There's a lot. It's very interesting to me when people say, but the kids will go home and the parents won't be able to help them because they'll be doing things in Spanish. But I'd like everybody to remember that is exactly what happens with more than half of our students every day when they get instruction in English and they go home and their parents aren't able to access that either. So we need to remember that we're coming from different perspectives and that our perspective might not be the same as everyone else's. So the middle and high school, we've been articulating vertically about what this might look like in the Carpinteria Middle School and the Carpinteria High School. So Shannon, Dr. Coletti, would you come up and talk about the middle school?
I'd love to talk about the middle school. Well, the first thing we're doing is we're working on the master schedule, and we were just talking about filling a need and how that would look. So we're getting together with our stakeholder groups, our parent group, our school site council, leadership. We'll meet and talk tomorrow about that. But we wanted to create opportunities for our students to have more electives, and we'd met with Darlene a few times and talked about bringing our Spanish down from 8th grade. That currently in 8th grade they get high school credit, and the course is very rigorous. So creating quite possibly a 7th grade class where they work on basics, and then bringing it down quite possibly into 6th grade. Any questions about that?
So is that part of this proposal?
No, these are ideas that we're exploring with our various meetings right now, but it's something that we'd like to see happen going forward.
So that's for native English speakers, but what's happening for the
We actually have Spanish
speakers?
speakers taking that Spanish class too, and they get a slightly altered curriculum.
Okay.
And they have to have above 3.0 to be in it currently.
So it's an elective, but kind of speaking back to our requirements under Prop 58 of what other English language acquisition things are we offering in the middle school?
Well, I would say that we definitely don't have all the answers right now, which is why we're meeting with all of our groups and just really brainstorming and figuring out how we're going to support the students in the community.
Do you know, Dr. Coletti, how many of your teachers are certified BCLAD that have the bilingual credential already? Do you have?
I don't have that in front of me. Darlene might have that answer.
Or just maybe district-wide? It's just trying to get a perspective of sort of...
We have a few of our teachers, though, that are, and then we have a few that do speak Spanish that are bilingual, maybe not biliterate.
Right.
And they've been attending the DLI meetings and have had a lot of conversations with Jamie and I on how that could look
how they
if
could
they
get a
expressed
BCLAD
interest.
or something. Yeah, okay, thank you.
So one thing we've talked about is like providing, could we bring the universities here to the district office boardroom once a month or something to help people get those classes and make it easier and less expensive for our staff to get the BCLAD credential. Darlene?
Yes, we currently have 11 employees who have the BCLAD. They are all in K-5.
Okay.
They are not in the middle school.
Okay, and not at the high school level either? Okay,
Do you
interesting.
need a BCLAD to teach a Spanish class?
No.
No, you need, for secondary, they just need this single subject Spanish credential. The BCLAD would assist them in K through 5.
Okay.
So basically, BCLAD is irrelevant after 5th grade because it's only for a is that correct?
It's not so much irrelevant, but it's not required when they're teaching a core class. If they're teaching Spanish, they need to have a single subject for the secondary
Right.
level.
Got it, okay.
Okay, and then the high school, Mr. Cornejo.
Good evening. At the high school, I think one of the best things is the fact that we will be able to enhance our AP offerings. Currently, we offer an AP class dealing with culture. Most of them are native speakers. By doing something like this in the long run, we will probably be able to offer a literature class, AP literature, and also explore the possibility of a third language, either working with City College for a dual enrollment class, or also the possibility of online classes that are starting to pop up that are A through G approved for the UC admission process. So that's the idea. The other thing is that currently we have, let's say we have 5 Spanish 1 classes. With this, it would just shift that need to Spanish 3 or Spanish 2s, and perhaps offer the AP class instead of a senior class, offer it as a junior class.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Great, thanks. I'm interested to hear about other options at the elementary level.
Okay, so I'm just going to run through this. It's
Okay.
at the,
And I just had one comment about high school. Mr. Cornejo, I can't remember where it was, but there was a really interesting program somewhere in Santa Barbara County where maybe somebody told me about it, where bilingual high school students were acting as interpreters. Was this in Carp? Anyways,
Barbara.
Santa Barbara. So that was another additional kind of a community outreach program that was really interesting to me.
One of the benefits of this program will actually be able to have students that actually can function in both languages. Right now we have students that have a difficult time functioning their native language because they have not had the foundation in order to have the academic language in order to be able to survive. So if I were to give my students, a significant number of students that speak Spanish, a Cien Años de Soledad by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, most of them would not be able to understand it in their native language because they do not have the academic language foundation in order to read it. So in order for us to have a bilingual cohort, we need to be able to start early with them and provide them with the foundation for them to be successful.
Okay, so some of the anticipated challenges that the committee came up with was the movement of staff could be an unintended consequence. So grade level changes, for example, in the elementary school. So just for the public's awareness, a teacher, an elementary teacher is hired as a district teacher that can teach from K-6. That's their credential. That doesn't assign them to a specific grade. You don't stay at a specific grade, a specific classroom, or a specific school. So it could have some unintended consequences with movement of staff. Any new program starting is a challenge, and it causes some level of fear and anxiety because it's new and it's different than the way we've done things before. The curriculum is could be an anticipated challenge. Where would we get the curriculum, and how would we sift through that? And then, as I mentioned before, there's been a lot of people concerned about parent confusion on the language when they come home at night if the parents aren't also Spanish speakers. So the proposed solutions by the committee is we maintain open communication with staff. So all staff were invited to the meetings, and Darlene and I held a meeting with all the BCLAD staff who had questions or curiosities or concerns, and we continue to have that open communication. Darlene and I also committed to a professional development plan developed at the district level and funded through Title I, II, and III, and she spoke to you a little about that. And that's going to be concurrently happening with the overall professional development plan for Carpenter Unified and, put into the LCAP so we have an idea of where we're going in the next 3 years with professional development. And then if we do approve the Director of Special Programs position, that person would help us research curriculum and order the Spanish version of our current adoptions. So, for example, our new math adoption that we're doing this year is available completely translated into Spanish. So we would order that, and we're going to look at the costs in just a minute. And we'd also be writing a parent education plan about how to help our parents, both Spanish-speaking parents and English-speaking parents, in being part of a dual language program. So where is the target language spoken? So if you're in kindergarten, where are you hearing the Spanish? You're hearing it in the classroom from the teacher and the instructional assistant. It is not being spoken in the playground and the cafeteria necessarily. Spanish is obviously allowed to be spoken, but they're not restricted to speaking Spanish only on the playground. When they go visit the library, that's still in English. Special education instruction is still in English. Counseling sessions are in English. Assemblies are in English, and Big Buddy and Little Buddy partner pairings are in English, and that's accounted for in the 10% of the instructional day. So we've tried to give you an idea of how much it costs. So on the left side are some options for professional development. Those are not things we have to do, but that's a menu of what we could be doing for professional development. The Association of the Two-Way Dual Language Education, it's a big conference, like a week-long conference, and it would be $5,000 for 2 teachers. That's including, hotel, food, travel, all that. To continue to contract with Dr. Pagan to provide technical support and professional development. That's something I would highly recommend if we did do this, because we do want to be doing it right and have people that know what they're doing advising us. The dual language collaboration at Santa Barbara County Education Office is $300 to participate in that series. The CABE conference, that's a conference that happens every year. That's an option. Release time for teachers, ALISO teachers, to observe the Catalino teachers and visiting neighboring schools of districts. That costs about $120 per day, which is the cost of a sub. And all of those can be paid through Title I, II, and III, or site funds. And materials and supplies, the estimate is classroom libraries at $1,000, classroom materials estimated at about $2,000, and classroom curriculum estimated at $1,000.
And that's per year? Like we would have to, because as grades go up.
So once you did a classroom library, you've got a classroom library. It wouldn't cost $1,000 a year.
Okay.
And the curriculum is a one-time cost until the next adoption or the next time you purchase curriculum for about 7 years.
That goes through like kindergarten through the
right.
Got it.
And most of the time, those costs come from the site. The curriculum comes from the district, but the materials come from the site. So speaking about what our recommendation is an English language development program, adding a language enrichment option at the elementary schools. And what that would look like is you'd have teachers pair up, or say, for example, I have 4 first grade classrooms. One teacher is bilingual. She can teach afternoon science in Spanish, and another teacher teaches art in English, and you have a rotation through so that the students all get an option to get some Spanish. And that's not, again, the goal is not to make them bilingual and biliterate, but expose them to some sort of language enrichment, and that's in addition to dual language immersion.
Yeah, I had some questions. So the committee's recommending 2 classes at Catalino. So when it was brought to us last year, we were concerned about transfers and messing up our neighborhood boundaries and all that. So I guess my question is kind of twofold. If we consider the 2 classes at Catalino, could an option be that is then restricted to Catalino boundary parents? Second is Dr. Fox. Dr. Fox is here. I'd kind of like to hear where Aliso is on this in terms of.
Well, she's right here.
Hi, everybody. You want to know where Aliso is with this right now?
Because our concern last year was that there would be Aliso students who would then request a transfer to Catalino, and that would throw off numbers and all of that. So.
And that's still a concern by a lot of our staff, is that our numbers will go down. And so that's, yeah, but then we've been informed that it's only a third, and a third, so we think maybe our numbers might not be adjusted too much.
And has Aliso kind of talked about also doing this strand within your school?
So I understand the proposal is to have the 2 classes start at Catalino this year, and then Aliso would appreciate the extra year to develop a committee to look into this and explore it more and see how it can work at Aliso.
So the committee that did exist, was it just Catalino?
No, there was representatives from every school.
From Aliso too?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't think that Aliso, from my understanding, had the time to really delve into all of it. I think from my understanding, most of the conversation was that it was going to be at Catalino. And so teachers were thinking that that's where it was going to be. But they would really like to have another year to see how it would work at Aliso and really explore those options.
Okay. Thank you.
The board could consider restricting it to one school, could consider restricting a certain number of spots from Aliso so it doesn't overdraw from that, however you'd like that to look.
I also feel strongly that neighborhood schools should represent the students that they have. And I also shared a concern, Rochelle, that we would pull students away, and also that an unintended consequence might be, for those of us with cars and the money to get easily from here to there, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but my worry would be that some parents might not be aware of the opportunity to them and or may not be able to provide the transportation just in that small neighborhood change. So I was actually going to mention that I felt that maybe there should be one school. I know that there's some logistical challenges with having a new program on 2 separate campuses, but that was a thought I had as well.
And right now, Catalino has 4 kindergarten classrooms.
Correct. 4 kindergarten, 2
So it'd
TK.
be half kindergarten would
Yes.
be dual language, and half would be
And also along those lines, because Catalino is so full already, that maybe sharing some of the burden with another campus could potentially help. I had some other questions, but I didn't want.
I think we also have some public comment on this, don't we,
great.
Billy? Yeah, so if you guys are all right with that, I'd like to hear from the public.
Yeah.
All right. For public comment, the first speaker, where'd my papers go? Oh, here we go. My first speaker is Connie McDonald.
Hi, my name's Connie McDonald, and I've lived in Carpinteria since 1972. I know Bob Keating very well, and he started that program. It didn't work, and it won't work this time. I think it's very, very demeaning to everyone. People that live in America need to speak English. And when you did this resolution on E7, when you're talking about everything, and then you want to cut people at Rincon High, you're going against your own principle. Everyone should be treated fairly. I think children, Spanish children learn English very quickly. But the problem is we need to offer more incentive to their parents, because some of them live here for 30 years. And their kids translate everything. We should offer more things for their parents so we can be a community that represents everybody, not just a few. And it just breaks my heart to watch something like this happen again, and it's going to fail. And when you do it at one school, I mean, just like when we had the kindergarten classes, they all were at Catalino. Then we didn't have bus things. Then we didn't have this. We constantly fail ourselves. We need to start at the basic. Yes, teach people how to speak English, and Spanish people should never lose their language. But we need to think of the whole community and all the schools, the diversity, what it'll do to each one. And remember, this is a small area, very expensive to live in. So I'm just frustrated. I've had 4 kids go through school here. I had one that taught Spanish and everything else, and I've fought many times, both ways on education, for and against. But it's always for the kids, the children, every one of them, the ones that are disabled, the ones that get bullied, the ones that they fly by the thing. Everyone needs to take a personal interest in the whole thing. And I don't have kids in school anymore, so I got out of the realm until I had a granddaughter, but I'm learning a lot, and this won't be the last of me, believe me. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Make a comment?
The next speaker is Luisa Ornales.
So I am here to express my strong support for dual language immersion instruction. I am a mother of 2 children, one who is currently a kindergarten student at Catalino School. There are so many logical reasons why a dual language immersion program would be great for our children. I could list a few, like our children would learn 2 languages, which opens up numerous job opportunities and career advancements. The entire school community would benefit because multiple languages and cultural heritage would be validated and respected. There's also the brain benefits. Studies are showing that a multilingual brain is quick to understand, is better able to problem solve, and can multitask at a very high rate. Let me talk about my experience with a form of dual language. I was an ESL student from kinder to 4th grade. I was taught to read and write in my native language first, before I was taught to read and write in English. Those 5 years of Spanish being taught to me were so beneficial to my education. Because of those 5 years, I've been offered job opportunities that English-only speakers would not even be considered for. However, I did lose some of my Spanish, and it would be hard for me to read Cien Años de Soledad and I did. I purchased it, and I took forever to read it because you lose it, and that's why I feel that dual immersion is the perfect form to have our kids learn 2 languages. Last year, when the school board decided not to move forward with the DLI program, I was shocked and I was disappointed. I was shocked because I felt the research provided to you by the DLI task force was extensive and full of potential. To me, it was a no-brainer to start offering dual language instruction right away. Sure, there would have been some glitches that would have been addressed before or during the school year, just like with any new program that is implemented ever. The benefits listed definitely outweighed the cons, and I was convinced I wanted this for my children. I was disappointed because I was hoping my child would begin this amazing program in kindergarten. It did not happen. Today, I am hopeful once again. I am asking the school board to approve dual language immersion program beginning with kindergarten and 1st grade classes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Carolyn Haynes.
Thank you. My name is Carolyn Haynes. I'm speaking tonight in support of the Dual Language Immersion Program. I appreciate the tremendous effort put forth by the district staff and community members to bring this proposal to the board both this year and last. I believe that educational opportunities for parents and families are important. Overwhelmingly, this community has shown support for this program. While there are questions and challenges inherent in the implementation of any new program, I believe that should not dissuade our district from pursuing this program. We are up for the challenge and will find ways to make this popular program work for all students in Carpinteria. As a parent of 2 family school students, I fully support more choices for families. I commend the board for their continued support of alternative programs within this district. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hannah Goodfield.
Hi, I'm Hannah Goodfield. I'm a mother of 2, and I'm married to a local 6th-generation Californian. I, on the other hand, am from the Midwest. I didn't have the luxury of being surrounded with multicultural people. So for me, I'm very excited to have the opportunity for my child and other children to learn alongside each other and to open up those barriers and to help each other grow and to support each other. You know, my husband said that growing up, you know, he wouldn't be included in some conversations because he didn't know what they were saying and stuff. And I think it grows the children together in cohesiveness for love of one another, as well as opens up doors in the future for them. And I think it's wonderful. You know, our ratio here in this community, as well as in most of California, is what? I don't know. 50-50. That's wonderful. That I think that if we do 50-50 English and Spanish, that's beautiful and wonderful, and they can all grow and be acceptable and accepting and loving to one each other. I personally volunteer in my son's class, Miss Melody's TK class at Canalino, and I love Canalino and I love Carpinteria, and I love our teacher and our class, and it's so wonderful. And seeing the children play together, I see that the kids cannot communicate with each other. Some kids, you know, it's segregated. So I think the dual language program would benefit the children on a personal and a social aspect, and it would be great. So I think we have enough staff that are bilingual and enough, you know, fluctuation amongst the teachers who are already existing teachers who are maybe, you know, feeling insecure about their position if they're only English speakers. I understand that. I could see that. You know, my mother's a teacher, and my aunt's a teacher, and I grew up with a lot of teachers, and now my mother has her doctorate in education. And so that's on a side note, I guess, but having all of that education in my background, you know, all students do matter, and all parents matter, and the community as a whole could benefit dual immersion programs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Too many buttons to push. The next person speaking is Leanne Patterson.
Good evening. You've seen me before. You know that I come in support of a DLI program in our district. I just want to remind us of what we've spoken about for the last 1.5 to 2 years about how the research really speaks for itself for DLI. It's there. If you Google it, it's there. It talks about cognition, creative thinking, world-mindedness, cross-cultural competence. The list is pretty endless on the benefits of speaking a second language. The second thing I want to remind us of is it's an opportunity to respond to parental demands and student needs. The third thing is we really do have a legal obligation with Proposition 58 to offer dual language options. DLI is the most effective and the most well-researched of any program that we could offer. Why wouldn't we offer the best option? Fourthly, this is an opportunity for us to be equal educators, opportunity for equal educational access for the kids. The last piece that I want to address has to do with the STRAND program. I know there's a lot of anxiety about whether this will work a school within a school. There's fear. In one of the articles that Jamie put out, page 13 says, schools where the dual language model was well integrated were able to foster academic literacy in both languages. But still, dual language can be the most effective language program, even if it cannot be fully implemented across the school. Interviewees highlighted the importance of integrating dual language programs into the rest of the school in order to share resources and activities and demonstrate the equal value of all languages and cultures. So it reminds us that even if we were to do 2 kindergarten classes inside of a monolingual, the other EO track and a DLI track, it still works. So let's support this and vote yes for DLI. Thank you.
Paola Rodriguez. Christian Beamish.
Good evening. I have a daughter who's at Aliso School and a little baby boy who I hope will follow in her footsteps. I'm speaking tonight in support of DLI also, dual language immersion. I think that I was the voice that you may have heard say 50-50 is that I understand, I might not have my demographics perfectly, but I understand that's más o menos the makeup of California and Carpinteria population-wise. But of course, our student body is more like 85 Latino, if I'm using the term correctly, Spanish speakers, and only 15% native English speakers. Selfishly, I want my children to have the opportunity to be proficient in Spanish because this is the world we're living in. This is our state, and I feel like we've got to live together. We're here. I'm sorry I'm not being as coherent as I would like, but I hope get the spirit of what I'm trying to say, which is we've got to be one people. And that's the reality. We are the people who are here. We are the people who have always been here. And, the rest is paperwork, but or details. But I'm confident that we can deal with the logistical issues that will, of course, accompany something as significant as a whole program within a program. And I'd like to echo what Leanne said about clearly the research has shown that the benefits to our student body, both native Spanish speakers and native English speakers, are inarguable. The benefits are fantastic, so why don't we avail ourselves of them? Thank you.
That's it. All right. More board comment?
I actually gonna put the audience on the spot. Is there any Spanish-speaking families here who would like to share your thoughts with us, and maybe we can have a translator translate?
Right there, the back.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, if you could just translate alongside. Thank you.
I can be speaking Spanish and English also, but
Okay.
I don't know if
Great.
you want me. She can
Whatever you're
translate.
comfortable
Well,
with.
Comfortable. I just want to make it comfortable for everybody to speak.
Yeah, you can start it.
I can say it.
Okay. Mi nombre es María Elena Hayes,
My name is Maria Elena Haynes,
and I have my 2 kids. Yo tengo mis 2 hijos. Perdón.
I have my 2 kids.
And uno terminó la escuela el año pasado
One of them ended school last year. He graduated.
y el otro terminó hace como 6 años.
And the other one graduated 6 years ago.
Y mi hija estudió español
My-
desde los 3 años.
My daughter studied Spanish since she was 3 years old.
Y ella habla y traduce y pronuncia el español sin ningún acento.
And she is capable of speaking Spanish, writing Spanish, translating Spanish without an accent.
Y mi hermana y yo le enseñamos.
My sister and I taught her.
Y le explicamos el abecedario desde muy pequeñita y ella empezó a estudiar por su cuenta, le gustaba mucho.
We taught her the alphabet in Spanish word by word, and she liked to study it a lot on a daily basis.
Ella cuando salió de la Universidad de Los Ángeles,
When she graduated from the University of Los Angeles,
dice que ella sentía que cuando estaba en la escuela, las niñas aprendían 2 años anteriores.
she felt like when she was in school during class, she thought that the other girls in her class knew more stuff like 2 years in advance, more than her. So
She
learned 2 years in advance of what her other classmates were learning.
Yo la tuve en una escuela privada en Montecito,
I had her in a private school in Montecito,
en McCarmo School, y luego fue a la escuela de Bishop Diego.
and then she went to Bishop Diego School.
Y ya el último año se vino a terminar aquí, como tuvimos problemas, se vino a terminar aquí en la high school,
Since we
en
had a
carpintería.
few problems over there, we came here and she finished high school in carpintería.
Y es cuando encontró eso. Y ya cuando entró a la universidad se dio cuenta que eso era el problema.
That's when she found that out, that was the problem.
En la public school es diferente a la private school.
She noticed that the public school was way different from the private school.
Y yo aprendí en el public school y aprendí igual, pero no sé qué diferencia hay en Estados Unidos.
She also learned in the public school the same way as her daughter
Yeah.
learned here, but she doesn't know what the difference is between the public school and the private.
En México yo estudié hasta la universidad y practiqué todo y vine aquí al City College y también estudié 3 años y 4 años el inglés. Y todo me he dado cuenta que la habilidad es con los 2 idiomas es mucho más rápido.
Okay, she studied in Mexico all the way to the university. Then she came here and studied 4 years in City College, English. And she noticed that the ability to learn English and Spanish is much more faster.
Y yo pienso que si lo quieren hacer aquí igual, es muy bueno porque los niños, mi hija se desarrolla mejor, porque dice, mamá, yo te hice caso y aprendí los 2 idiomas. Hay niñas que luego me dicen, ¿por qué tú sabes inglés y español y lo hablas perfecto? Porque no tiene el acento.
¿Me lo puedes decir una vez más, por favor?
O dice que mi hija...
Frases cortas.
O que mi hija aprendió a hablar inglés y español y no tiene el acento como otras gentes.
English and Spanish, and she realizes she does not have the same accent as other people.
Y las otras personas que la ven en el trabajo dicen, no creo que tú hables español.
And the other coworkers she has at work don't tell her, I don't believe that you don't talk Spanish because you don't have that accent.
Y le ha tomado veces hablarles en español para que le entiendan que sí habla español.
She's had to prove to them that she speaks Spanish, so she has to talk in Spanish in order for them to believe her.
Y en los trabajos inmediatamente le dan trabajo.
And wherever she goes and applies for a job, she gets a job right away because of that, because she's bilingual.
Y me siento orgullosa por mis hijos.
And I'm very proud of my children and honored to have them.
Yeah. Bueno, Nich.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Should we ask some questions about the program in general?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that appropriate, just to do that?
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Okay, okay.
That's
Well,
what we're having a discussion.
Yes. Well, I'm slightly at a disadvantage or advantage, depending on how you see it, having just campaigned and a year ago having come to these meetings as a parent. I've already gone on the record through my letter to the Coastal View in support of the program. However, as a board member, of course, I'm seeing it through different eyes and that. I want to really emphasize that I support this program because it is the first new academic program that I can remember the district passing in a very long time. CUSD has a great reputation for its sports, but for better or worse, we're not necessarily on the map for our academic strengths. And I hope that having this DLI program would focus our district on championing student academic achievement as much as touchdowns. So, the other point I want to make is that no one should have to choose between their language, their culture, and academic success, especially when the ability to speak 2 languages is an amazing life skill that will serve an individual throughout their entire life. DLI should be seen not as the best or only academic program that embraces our culture, language, and needs of our students with Latin American heritage, but the cornerstone of a new approach at CUSD to embrace the students in our public school system and to meet them where they are, not just with DLI. I think that we would fail as a district if we only pass DLI. I think that DLI has to be the prow of the ship that we're going to launch. That's going to be really a new approach to embracing Spanish language learning across the curriculum. The other thing I want to face, which is sort of an ugly thing that is a little bit uncomfortable, is that we're in uncertain times nationally with regard to public education. Soon, depending on changes, public schools may be forced to compete financially with charter schools, homeschool programs, and private schools. There are currently no other programs in Carpinteria featuring DLI, and we could use it as another gem in our crown to show why families should choose CUSD for their kids. And the last point along those lines is that I want to emphasize is that this is a voluntary program that would give families more options. And choice is one of the things that families want, need, and expect from their educational community. So my last point is I say give the people what they want, which is DLI in Carpinteria as a pilot starting in fall 2016.
18.
Fall 2017, thank you. I'm a little behind the times. I do have questions and I do have concerns, however. So just some quick questions first. I've heard from the community that there are some real concerns around, and I'm just going to list these. I'm not expecting you to answer these necessarily unless something jumps out to you, Jamie, but there's some real staff concerns around community concerns around testing and how our students do with regard to testing, because the tests are getting harder. The state testing is getting harder, and for students not trying to master 2 languages. I also want to know the implications to non-DLI staff. You know, kind of would there be, like you said on your anticipated changes, do we have some sort of support network set up for them? And also, just like I said, that cornerstone approach of like not just the DLI, but how would the DLI work to support our other English language learning programs and Spanish language instruction overall. And then my last points are really specific, which is that I do not support the lottery program as it's listed here. I would support an open lottery program rather than a biased program giving staff preference or sibling preference. I believe that it should be an open lottery, open each year to everyone, and that's all.
Yes.
And just thank you. I think that the program, this report has grown and developed exponentially since it was brought forward last year, and I really think that it's a stellar example of, you know, the community vision brought together in one place. So thank you for that hard work.
Thank you.
Rogelio.
Yes. I've heard some comments. One, it looks like, well, at first I thought that every school was together in this, but I heard Aliso School saying we would like to wait, and that's one issue. The other one is that I have gotten some personal emails, and believe me, the community is divided. I would say 50-50, whether supporting dual language immersion or not. They were saying, well, this is one option. I would not like no one to tell my children what option to learn a new language. And like I said before, the official state regulations come up later, spring. And what if the dual language program is passed and then we get some issues about, well, I didn't know about this option. Like, for example, ESL or Spanish classes, or, well, this can give me the right to ask for, let's say, everything bilingual, including sports. I think it's kind of risky, in my personal view, like to go ahead and vote on it today. I would like to wait. That's not my personal opinion. Wait until we get the state regulations. Otherwise, I don't know. There could be some liability issues, and that's something that we don't need. And there's also carries, like, for example, that I can see like a huge shortage of instructional aids trying to cover these dual language immersion program. Let's say that, well, what about science courses? What about biology? Are we going to have enough instructional aids? It seems to me that we have, as it is right now with the dual language immersion, we have a huge problem finding substitute teachers or instructional aids. So I would use caution, and I would prefer to wait and see those state regulations first. Otherwise, normal saying would be like jumping the gun, and that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Jacqueline?
I'm still processing
information. Michelle?
Yeah, I got some things. So while I think there's still some glitches to work out, I believe that there is enough public support to warrant a pilot for 17-18. So I'm open to that. I think that having the Proposition 58 guidelines are going to help us to develop our other options, which I really look forward to seeing those ELD options represented in LCAP this spring, and also the development of a publication that can list all of the options that can be reviewed by DLAC, and because I think that's the most appropriate group to really give input on that. I agree that our district needs to offer parental options that are within our public school system instead of having to go outside, and keep our students here with us. I'm still concerned about the staffing challenges. So when we start to review adding additional classes for first grade and going forward, I'd like to revisit our BCLAD staff and be creative about how we're going to handle that. I agree with Maureen. I'm not happy with the lottery priorities. I agree that it should be an open lottery, not have any group prioritized siblings, staff, children, any of that. It needs to be a true lottery. But I could see approving going forward.
Can I ask a question of Dr. Pagan? In your experience, how has dual immersion, how has it been received by the Spanish-speaking community? Will we encounter any issues in recruiting families to be the 50%?
It's been, from my experience, it's been very positive all around. It's created has been said already, a real sense of community from both sides. Not only do students share at the school, but they also home birthday parties. They get invited to each other's quinceañeras. There's just a whole integration of the community. So I see also Spanish-speaking parents I saw Spanish-speaking parents getting more involved in parent groups, the events. Just a real strong community. So well received. We also have parents who are second or third generation Latinos, Hispanics, and want also to reconnect with that, with the language and that culture. So they're also applying to the program as well.
So Rogelio, when you say you have families or community talking to you, the 50-50,
correct,
are they Spanish speaking, and the ones who are hesitant, what are they hesitant about?
Okay. My contacts, basically, it's like 80% Hispanic, and it's been like a week or so. This has taken a lot of my sleep. Believe me, and like last night I only slept a couple of hours, so I might drop over here. And basically their concern is this: this is something really new. It hasn't been seen before, and basically they're afraid that it might not work. That's my insight.
These are the Spanish-speaking families?
Correct.
And actually, I thought of that too, and I was counseled by another board member that it's easier to start programs than it is to cancel programs.
Yeah, because this is a 5 year or 6 years commitment.
Well, actually, I have a draft motion that includes the idea to have a yearly review. And here's my thought process. My cousin, or my niece and nephew, moved to Foster City in Northern California, and they did a Mandarin dual language immersion school for 2 years. Then they moved away. So basically, they had the equivalent of like a 2-year experience with a dual language school, and then they left it. Did that leave them at a disadvantage? No. So I think that having any amount of bilingual education and then pulling the plug on that, I don't think it's going to hurt those students, but I think it could potentially hurt our district to keep perpetuating a program that by assessments isn't working. So I think as part of our as part of the motion that I've drafted, it's the idea of having a yearly review and an ongoing language committee to not only keep advising us and keeping us up to date and assessing the students, but also making sure that we're not just focusing on dual language and that we're also broadening the approach out.
So I guess that would be a good question for Dr. Pagan. So in your experience in Napa, when we were still taking the CBEST, how did third graders and fourth, fourth, and fifth graders perform in relation to the rest of the students?
So Jamie shared a graph about that showed the two-way immersion students and how they perform in relation to other programs. I conducted the same study for my dissertation at Columbia University, and I found the same results. It's that students that were in a dual language program outperformed the structured English immersion students at a neighborhood school. So we just have to, as you suggest, make sure we're monitoring, make sure that things are going and are being implemented as research calls for, that we don't cut corners, that we keep in mind the time commitments in each of the languages. But this is a program that's been thoroughly researched. It's from the 1960s. This is not something that started last year. We have over 500 programs now in California. And there are lots of researchers that are paying attention to it and conducting research. Our conferences that are dual language conferences, there's always at least, half are about research and results. So we understand that this has to, be the way that we, the monitoring is really important. So, so I think overall the results are very positive for students in a dual language program.
And so, Jamie, you don't think we will have any issue recruiting the 50% of English learners?
So I think the way the plan is written is a third, a third, a third. And it's a third.
Oh, right, sorry.
It's a third of the students are bilingual, a third are Spanish speaking, and a third are English only speaking. No, I do not. From our attendance from the interest list we had last year, from the interest that we have at the COPLA, the ELAC group, I do not think recruitment's going to be. I think we're going to have far more people wanting to do it than we are going to have room for.
Okay.
And the other thing I like about the way this is, it's being implemented, like we're just talking about 2 classrooms next year. And if it's just terrible, you know what I mean? It's like, well, I think
that's the big that's one of the big considerations is if it's terrible,
then we pull the plug on
those
it.
Kindergartners are at a big disadvantage.
On one hand, but if the parents and the families are willing to, like myself, are willing to...
I think we need to be committed to it for more than just a year if we're going to do this.
Right. Oh, do you think... So you think it should be a 5-year pilot program? Because I think what I suggested was a 5-year pilot program with an annual review to give us both options.
I'm in favor of the review, but I don't think we're doing anybody any favors if we're not committed to it for more than, if we're not committed to it for less than 4 or 5 years.
I agree. I think if we don't have a full cohort go through to 5th grade, we really won't know if it worked or not.
You really can't collect enough data in the space of 1 year.
Disservice to those students.
Well, yeah, but that's why I was like, I'm so adamant about the parents really need to understand the risk of tests. The standardized tests are only given in English, so. Those test scores are going to be affected. So it's just one piece,
but when we got the results,
and it's going to affect our district overall, scores. So it's a risk we're taking, but with the research showing that by 5th grade we're going to have that achievement gap narrowed, right? So we have to do something because what we're doing now is not working.
Can you speak to test scores and that sort of when they're still learning kind of stage?
So students will take our Smarter Balance the first time in 3rd grade. So at that point they have had 3 years of an English program that's that
part-time.
That's not a full-time. So we might see a slight, gap between those that are in a full English program versus those that are in a dual language program. But long term, they will quickly surpass that group of students and will be achieving a much higher, or higher levels. One other thing that I also wanted to mention is that knowing your language, your first language, facilitates the acquisition of a second language. So literacy in the first language is critical, especially for our English learners. This is why I think we have 400,000 long-term English learners in the state of California. These are students who have been here since kindergarten and are still not reclassified. Why? Because they've been in structured English immersion. That's my suspicion. So we really need to rethink about what we're doing And so I think that dual language, it will help. I mean, it definitely will help that.
So let's
because it'll
just kind of reverse that, though. So for the English only, the third that are English only, they're going to have limited access to the Common Core content in those early grades. So that's going to affect their knowledge base.
That's why the 10% is really critical and the 20% is really critical. We need to address some of the Common Core standards. But what we also see is that English learners, I mean, the English only students have the support from home, that literacy continues, and we encourage that to, to continue at home, the reading in books at home. I have the EOs actually, when they take the Smarter Balance, they're actually going to do just as well as the other EOs.
So can you get first grade content in 20% of a school year? I mean, like...
Yes, and a lot of things transfer from one language to the other. So they're learning in Spanish, they transfer it to English.
So how quickly are the English-only students learning Spanish?
They are learning very, very fast. I was impressed that after 2 weeks.
Give me a ballpark. 1 grade, 2 grades, 3 grades.
It's based on the child, but overall, I think that by the end of kindergarten, they are very conversant on just some of the social language and counting and some Spanish words. There's a start of a conversation, so very rapidly they're acquiring a second language, and that's also because most of them come with a strong literacy background as well. They've been in preschool, they've been in TK, they've been in other programs.
And I just wanted to really quickly speak to, we are coming back to you at a certain point, but Carlos also wears another hat, and he's helping us with our ELD initiative district-wide. So recently he was here training. We did a professional development on January 18th with all District K, TK, and first grade teachers on the English language arts or English language development standards. And we are implementing a 12-week pilot program of designated ELD starting on March the 3rd. So we are kicking that off at the same time, and that's a state requirement that we have not been doing well.
That's district-wide?
District-wide.
Okay.
And so Carlos is working on that with us as well.
So here's where I'm struggling with. So the goal of these programs is to reduce the gap of academic performance, correct? And I just want to make sure that our target population is that population that we want to reduce that gap. In your research, when you see the performances, did you control for parent involvement? Because it seems like me, if parents are interested enough to enroll their students in this kind of program, they already have an edge. And so we want to outreach to those kids who are really in need of these programs, whose parents may not even know to enroll, who parents are maybe skeptical. In your research and your experience, how do we make sure that programs like this actually target the population that we want to target and achieve the goals we want to achieve, which is to reduce the gap?
So for my own personal research, going to your first question, I controlled for parent education. So and the mother on the mother side, and so I conducted a regression analysis, and so the research showed that the higher the education level, the better students perform at school. So we actually at Napa Valley Language Academy started to conduct lots of GED classes at the school, as well as ESL classes to improve the level of education level of the parent. We also applied for an Even Start program. Back then, it was a huge grant. That also had a component of parent education in addition to parenting skills and other resources. And parent involvement is crucial, and so that was always encouraged and promoted by conducting meetings in both languages. We had a parent liaison also who reached out to parents. So every correspondence in both languages, and we actually had parents, talking to each other out on the playground and encourage them to participate and get involved.
So this question is for you, Jamie.
Yes.
In our lottery, is there? It's just straight up lottery. Whoever applies, and if you qualify, so we can't really create a system where we would actually target at-risk, most needed population that would.
That's up to you.
Yeah, so the lottery as it is in the plan gives preference to staff members and also
Should it be that way?
I support your.
and also preference to siblings.
Yeah.
So I think if that's a concern that you had, that could be, I think, you know.
I mean,
I just want to make
Well,
sure that the program targets
yet, but-
the
Right.
group that most
And that really
needs it.
that becomes our job into how we promote the program and advertise the program and who we speak to about it. It's difficult to determine what a kindergartner,
Right,
an incoming kindergartner, if they're at risk or not, because we don't have them yet. We have certain measures like free and reduced lunch that can give us, qualification that can give us some data. But it's certainly, if that's your direction, we can go that way.
And I think it's tricky too because it's sort of there is a self-selecting element,
Absolutely, absolutely.
where parents that really want this program are going to seek it out. However, because this program kind of needs parent involvement and might not succeed, do you know what I mean? You can't require parent involvement ever, but some parents are just naturally inclined that way. If you know what I mean. So, but like I said, I think the way I have envisioned passing this tonight is only with the assurance that this is just the beginning for a larger outreach, which is actually going to be mandated by Prop 58, so it's in a way already kind of taken care of.
I don't think DLI is ever going to be mandated by Prop 58.
No,
but
no, that's not
as
what
an
I'm saying.
option, yeah.
But English language instruction
That's always
is
been
mandated.
Yeah. I have a question, and maybe Kirsten can answer it. So in the plan, it says special ed students would not be given instruction in Spanish, but if they're in the class, tell me how that would work.
So when we assess students for special education, we're required first to determine what is their native language. And then once we do that, then we assess in that native language, typically it's Spanish or English. And then we determine based on that information if they have a disability. And so we provide if they do and they qualify for special education, then we provide the specialized academic instruction in English.
Okay, so they could be in the DLI class, but their SAI would be given in English?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and there are programs that have provided support to students in a dual language immersion program in their native language who need that through, for example, a bilingual instructional assistant or some other support embedded in the program.
In thinking about the question of how to attract different populations, I just realized that maybe having one class at Catalina and one class at Aliso would help to spread
I think that it's been done in the past, like having these meetings at our school sites.
I'm hearing
having
from Aliso that they're not ready, that the teachers
there's
are not ready.
There's not a lot of staff endorsement at Aliso at this point. So I think we'd almost be forcing something on them that they're not really willing or able to take at this point in time. I mean, my feeling is I still have some questions like I did last year. I think a lot of those have been answered. I liked a lot of the comments that were made tonight by the community. I think having more choices is something that I'm always a big advocate for, and I think everyone would. And I agree with Hannah with what she said about having the kindergartners being able to communicate, and it builds a better sense of community. I mean, we felt that when we were in kindergarten with our daughter when we first started on the track we're on. But I also think that it's important, like Michelle said, that we do incorporate some alternate second language, alternate Spanish classes exposure for the rest of the student body at all the campuses, so that, because I think that's really important. I mean, language acquisition at a young age is so much better than it is when you get to 7th or 8th grade. And so I'd really like to see that as part of, a plan moving forward. I like the idea of a 6th, 7th, 8th Spanish class. I think we used to have that at the junior high, 7th and 8th. Everybody got to see Mrs. Kutzner belly dancing for us. What? No, we had a belly dancing Spanish teacher.
Yeah, because we do.
Those of you that attended school here remember that. And she rode a Harley. Yeah. So,
Carpinteria folklore. It's good stuff.
It is. It's good stuff. But, but I do see the community, the support for this program. So I think if I can get a motion from
I would
someone.
like to make a motion.
All right.
So I move to approve I move to approve a 6-year pilot dual language immersion program starting with 2 kindergartens at Canalito, starting in fall 2017 with a random lottery for any interested students and an ongoing yearly assessment to measure student achievement, and with an ongoing dual language instruction committee to map out future programs at all schools and across the grades.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yes. I would like to follow the law and wait until we get the official regulations from the state.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
All right. Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. Thanks, everybody, for showing up tonight.
Better take a short recess.
So we're gonna take a short recess.
Go to the bathroom.
We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, me too.
All right, welcome back. I lost my place. That's what I get for going away from this. Okay, we're on the board policies, F1. F1, Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 6158, Instruction Independent Study, second reading. Mike,
Move to approve.
I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item F2, Administrative Regulation 0420, Philosophy, Goals, Objectives, and Comprehensive Plans, School Plan, Site Council, single reading, first single reading, okay.
I can speak really
Yeah,
quickly to
that'd
what
be
the
great.
change was here. So this is the bylaws that govern the school site councils. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. And so it just needed to be updated to take out the old language like CST, California Standards Test,
Okay,
up
all
to
right.
CASP. So it's pretty procedural.
Okay, all right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item F3, Board Policy 6170.1, Instruction Transitional Kindergarten, first reading.
Aye.
I had some. I think.
We need
sorry.
to get a
A motion.
motion first, and then we have discussion.
I move to approve the first reading.
Second.
So now we can have discussion.
Okay. I believe this was this added tonight in regard to the questions that I had relating to the item last week, or you were just saying when I was suggesting that we amend the minutes that this was going to be brought to the table now so we could
Correct.
possibly.
So if you have questions, Craig is here.
Well, I'm not sure I understand your question, but the point that I was wanting to make was that understanding there would be a discussion and direction obtained from the board with respect to whether you wanted to implement this draft or whether you wish to amend it. I was just suggesting that less time be spent on amending the minutes compared with having a substantive discussion right now.
Right. So if we've already made a motion to approve this, then
Then you can make
move
a
to
motion
amend
to
it.
amend it.
Okay. Then I'd like to make. Well, I guess we'll just have a discussion, and I can raise my questions because some of the questions that I raised were actually kind of legal questions. I rewatched the section where we discussed first the presentation around ETK, and then the consequent action that we took. In addition to the irregularity around my motion and being seconded and then not voted on, there were a number of other there wasn't a clear staff recommendation, and we kept referring as we were talking in our discussion to staff recommendations, but actually there weren't any staff recommendations, and the whole way that the decision was made, I felt was fairly haphazard and not ideal. And it resulted, and again, because the minutes reflected a motion that we didn't actually pass, again, I think I was not the only person who was confused by the end result of that. So basically, here's the issue that I have. And it's taken me a long time of rewatching it, writing various people emails, and then it took me a while to kind of put my thoughts together. So I'm just going to read a little thing of what I have. And my overall question is, what is the overall goal of our ETK policy? And the question.
This one's just the transitional kindergarten.
No, it's both.
Is it?
Yeah, the ETK is at the end of it.
Included.
So because the way the policy is written and the way kind of the discussion went down last time, it undermines the regulations. The policy we've created actually undermines the program itself, and it sends a mixed message. And just to review kind of what we know that families in Carpinteria want an ETK program that allows all children with spring birthdays to attend. But teachers have also stated that classrooms with 24, 4 to 5-year-olds feels too big, regardless of their birthdays. The problem is that this policy, as it's written right now, on one hand, allows all children who have birthdays until June 30th to attend. That's what it says. And then in the next couple of sentences and paragraphs, it says it creates all these random artificial barriers to attendance, like assessments, no busing, rolling admission, and a wait list. So I feel that this is a two-faced approach to the problem that would ultimately create potentially create a program that didn't rectify the class size issue, because that's not actually stated in the motion. And
well, the busing part of it would be. I mean, a 4-year-old on a bus by himself is a. I wouldn't.
It's already happening.
We're already
because this policy was not enforced this year, so I don't know where this policy came from. My daughter takes the bus every morning at 7:15 in the morning. She's 4. The next stop they go to, they pick up a 4-year-old, Lilas.
Okay. All right.
So that's why I don't understand this policy. The assessment piece, we didn't talk about at all in our discussion. And suddenly there's like an assessment by the principals, and there's all these assessments. So
we talked about that last year when we were first considering ETK.
Again, that wasn't done this year either.
We did not revisit it. I did make a comment about the assessments, yeah.
So, and then I also don't think, I also wondered if there was a legal problem with limiting the number of classes offered by choice for a district, meaning we say we have kindergarten, we don't say we have 3 kindergarten classrooms, because I don't know if legally we can.
We're obligated to offer kindergarten to everyone who wants to attend, whereas the early transitional kindergarten is optional.
Okay, so I just is that your understanding too, Craig, that if we say ETK is open, ETK is a public school program that we're now offering, but we get to limit which ETK, like how many ETK kids come?
That's correct, because it's optional, unlike regular TK or any other grade level in the district.
Okay, so I guess my problem is the way it's set up right now. If we only allow up to December 2nd birthdays, there's a possibility that no kids who have birthdays after December 3rd will be allowed. And I think a much more fair way to run the program would be to either not have it at all, which is not the spirit of what we were saying before, or to say, we want a February 1st birthday and hold to that and allow every child up until that day.
I think what we said was that, we have to admit students to transitional kindergarten with birthdays between September 3rd and December 2nd. Mm-hmm. And what we're saying is that we're gonna allow all children who turn 5 years old before the end of the school year to apply. We're going to give precedence to the older children and limit the enrollment to 3 classes. That was very clear.
But actually, it wasn't clear. That wasn't stated in the that language. Oops, sorry, excuse me. That wasn't all in the motion, which we approved. So that was kind of language that we sort of chatted about after the motion was talked about and discussed, but it wasn't in the motion that we approved. So I think that's.
I think I didn't go back and revisit it, but
Yeah.
but I'm.
I know, and that's what it was a very confusing.
To approve the ETK, and then what we discussed was how we're instructing
staff to
implement. The motion was to continue with the pilot program.
Well, I think if we want to, no, that's not the motion, because no one ever stepped in to say I want to amend the motion, and then we voted on. That you can't just if you make a motion, you're voting on the language. Isn't it true that if you make a motion, you're voting on the language of that motion, and if you want to change the motion, you can amend the motion, but you can't just haphazardly sort of. Because we were all talking about different possibilities, and some of those were picked up and some of those were not.
But I would just say that, yes, you're correct. The motion is the motion, and you already took care of that tonight. But as I'm sure you know, and as is common, when the board makes a determination by adopting a motion that then needs to be carried into effect by staff, getting the implementation written up does not follow the motion word for word, because there's a lot of other detail that needs to go into it. I mean, I'll just say inter-district attendance is a perfect example that your board has had to contend with from time to time over the years. So you provide the direction to staff, and they, on occasion with help from my office, will bring back to you a regulation or a board policy that we believe conforms to what it is that you adopted in a motion, but then you tell us whether or not you like the language that we've brought back to you, or whether or not you want to amend it. And that's the very reason why this is coming on as a first reading. It's not coming on with a recommendation that the board approve it and finally adopt it.
So let me just, if I want to make amendments, should I make them all as one motion, or should I make a motion for each amendment that I am
No, you can make it all as
suggesting?
one motion.
Okay. Then I move to eliminate all language pertaining to the need for a formal classroom assessment, and to eliminate the sentence, "No child attending expanded TK shall be entitled to district transportation." And to add as a requirement of the program's continuance beyond 2017-18 that an ETK study committee of parents, at least one ETK teacher, board member, and principal will form in 2017 to examine CUSD ETK student evaluations, to make a staff report with recommendations by January 2018. This sentence will replace the sentence about an evaluation on April 30th, 2018.
Would you mind reading that one more time, please? Because
Sure.
I wasn't sure that I totally got that.
Yeah, I could do these as separate if that would be
No,
easier.
no,
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
fine.
I move to eliminate all language pertaining to the need for a formal classroom assessment.
No, I got that
Oh,
in the
okay.
transportation. It's the last part
Okay.
about the evaluation.
I move to add as a requirement of the pilot program's continuance beyond 2017-18 that an ETK study committee of parents and at least one ETK teacher, board member, and principal will form in 2017 to examine CUSD ETK student evaluations, to make a staff report with recommendations by January 2018. This sentence will replace the sentence about an evaluation on April 30th, 2018. And last, I move to simplify enrollment to, well, no, I'm going to do that separately. So that's that.
Okay, do I have a second there? Okay, seeing as none, we'll.
I second that.
Oh, you do second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of?
Can we just discuss?
Yeah, we can.
So I disagree with the assessment piece.
Okay.
Because I think it's very important that we see if those children are really ready for this experience, and they should fall in line with the same assessment system that we have in place for all students. I also disagree with the recommendation that a board member should be on a committee, because that's not really a board member's place.
Do you want to amend that and take that out?
I'm just discussing right now. And the bus situation, I mean, it's a parent's prerogative if they want to put their child on a bus, if as long as we're not offering extra busing.
I think that's what the current policy says. It just says we're not obliged to provide it.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean
so
we won't provide it.
Yeah,
Just we're not obliged.
we're not obliged to. Okay, so
No, it actually prohibits it. It says students are, TK students are prohibited from busing.
Which
Isn't it?
page is
No,
that
I don't think
on?
it says that.
I'm sorry, what it says is, and this is what you approved originally a year ago, no child attending expanded TK shall be entitled to district
Yeah.
transportation.
Yeah.
So entitled.
That's different
just
than.
not,
it
you're not allowed.
No, it doesn't mean we have.
Right.
We can provide it. It just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's.
So it doesn't bar children from
doesn't bar it,
from
but
busing.
it means that we don't have to go out of our way to bus
Okay.
a child.
So can I give an example? We have certain bus routes, so we actually don't bus outside of a certain radius of the city. And so we're just basically saying that even if you lived where we don't have a bus, you're not entitled to it.
Which is the same for all grade levels,
Right,
really.
but it wouldn't preclude them from, if they're already on the route, then they of course can hop on the bus.
Can I amend my own motion to take out board member? Just the word board member, because it was apparently not.
I just
okay.
suggest
Vote
that
on
maybe,
the first motion.
Just
sure
take a-
you
take a
can,
vote?
but
Okay.
the suggestion would be to hear any other discussion on the amended motion before amending it again.
I-
Other
Okay,
board members may wish to weigh in.
Okay, with the busing thing, actually, I think it's okay to eliminate that because I think it's just the way I read it as a parent was my kid can't get bused.
Well,
And
but if you read it carefully, that's not what it says.
I don't know why we even have why do we even have anything in there about busing?
But we have it for all grade levels. It means that if you're a student in this district and you live, say, at the top of Toro Canyon.
It's in the kindergarten. It says it in the kindergarten, under kindergarten too.
Well, I don't know if it
There's
does.
not a
but,
board. This is a special board policy because it's
but
not
it means
a
we
mandated.
don't have to go out of our way to provide
Well,
transportation.
maybe then just reword it.
Well, that's what entitled means.
I did not read. I mean, I was an English major. I have a master's in English, and I did not read it that way. So.
Well, let's have a vote on your amended version. All in favor of Maureen's amended board policy?
The first one, right? The one you just did?
The one she read.
Okay, yes.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a second motion, if that's
Okay.
okay. I move to send the issue of the revised board policy 6170.1 to an ad hoc committee made up of one principal, one teacher, and one ETK parent, who will then report back at the next meeting with another draft of this policy that reflects a more cohesive ETK strategy and program. And this committee will also help make a preliminary plan with the administrator in charge on how to create a long-term strategy for an effective, sustainable TK-ETK program that addresses both teacher, district, and community needs. So basically sending this policy to a committee.
Okay. So that's
For consideration.
in addition to your other amendments?
No,
Or
my motion failed.
It did, but
Yeah.
are you? So you're just putting that one on. That's your only amendment to.
No.
the board policy.
I wanted to send this policy that we're reviewing, and I don't know if I'm doing this the right way because I'm new.
Well, I
But-
can, if
okay,
you want,
thank you.
address the procedure.
Sure.
When I came and spoke with you at a recent meeting, we talked about your board policy providing that generally you would follow Robert's rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an example where that might apply. There was an original motion made that was seconded, and then Maureen made an amendment, which was then voted on. The proper way to do it is
To vote
for the person who wants to make the amendment offering to amend the motion in a certain way. And it's then up to the maker of the motion to agree to that or not. And if the maker of the motion doesn't agree to that, then before any further motions are made, the original motion is voted on.
Okay.
If you see what I mean, because otherwise it
Yeah,
can
you keep
it can
getting-
keep going.
Okay. So I guess we're back. I think at this point we'd vote on the original motion
To approve the minutes.
to
approve the board- the first
board
reading of
policy,
the-
first reading of the board policy as it's presented to us.
Okay.
That correct, Craig?
Yes.
Yeah, we still have a
You-
motion.
Yes.
on the floor.
You have an original
We have a motion and a
Yeah.
second. So all in favor of the board policy as presented in the board agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
So, can I say anything else now, or is that?
Well,
it?
did you vote for the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carried 4-1.
Okay.
So
Can I still make a discussion, or is that at the end
well,
of
we're
that?
done with it, but you can talk about it at the end of it.
Can I make a recommendation for an added agenda item then?
Sure.
I still.
But let's cover that at the end of the
at
meeting.
the end,
when
so
we
I can't say anything more about this topic.
No.
Okay. Let it go.
Okay, so we'll move on to let's see.
Administrative
F4.
regulation.
Administrative Regulation 5111, student admission, first reading.
So this was just a little change that needed to be made to this accompanying regulation in order to acknowledge that we're no longer in last year's pilot program, that there's now a continuation of the pilot program. It doesn't go into any detail.
I move we approve as presented.
Any discussion?
I have a discussion item here, which is, since we're talking about ETK, I think the discussion that we had around ETK, and if you rewatch that section of the board meeting from last week, it's in great contrast to the DLI presentation that was brought up tonight. And I think the big difference is that the DLI was a thought-out policy with the actual consequences on the community considered. And I don't feel like this board policy, I feel like it's haphazard and it doesn't fully flesh out what the various concerns are. Like if we make the deadline at this,
Can you just give me an example?
Okay, like, do you know if a parent stopped you on the street, could you tell them what the rules around ETK were?
Enrollment, like age of admission?
Anything. I have a kid whose birthday is March 13th. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I could probably tell them.
Okay. Well, probably all of us would give them a different answer because of the way the information was.
Well, we'd probably all give a different answer on almost every policy we have.
No, it's because of the way there's rolling admission, there's a deadline, there's a wait list, there's an assessment, which some of us registered and did you even know there was supposed to be an assessment? According to the policy, we didn't discuss it last week.
We discussed assessment. I
So-
remember distinctly Michelle mentioning, because I mean, that's her bailiwick.
But then in reality, my daughter didn't have an assessment. My daughter got to take the bus.
That was probably okay. So last year, so this is actually a good point of discussion. So last year, this program was thrown together willy-nilly at the last minute because the board was not made aware of it until parents had been told that we were going to offer this program. So we really didn't do our due diligence last year, and that was a big deal for us. And so this year we have done our due diligence. We have studied these policies, and so it's really not fair to compare last year to this year, because if you'll remember, Maureen, when you came and spoke to us, there was threat of Brown Act violations because we hadn't. We voted on something that wasn't agendized, and we went back did all those things, and so it's not fair to compare last year's program with what.
Well,
what
then let's
we've
just
done this year.
then I think moving forward, if this district wants that program to succeed, it needs a clear objective and a clear plan about what that looks like and why we're doing it. Just in the same way that Jacqueline was asking great questions tonight about why would we do DLI? Why would we implement a new program? And if we can't, why do we have ETK? I don't think this board policy addresses why we have it, and nor does it create a clear direction towards what we're trying to achieve. And the reason, I think, after thinking about it a lot, was that there's no one that's been championing it, thinking about it, studying it, looking at research, and creating a cohesive snapshot of best practices and how we could achieve it going forward.
I think the big part of that, and Michelle could probably speak to it much better than I can, but it's because there's a lot of dissent in whether or not this early transitional kindergarten is a worthy program, the way it's constituted in public schools, because you can't expect children of that age and development to be able to succeed.
But you can't have an
with the ratios that we are able to offer. You know, they're much better off in a higher student teacher ratio.
And that's your
Or
opinion.
teacher-student
That's
ratio.
that's your opinion, and you're welcome to that opinion. Myself, as a parent of a child with a spring birthday in an ETK classroom that I visited, I have a very, very different opinion and experience on that. And that's what's great about being on a board, is we get these plurality of experiences. But if we're going to have an ETK program, I want it to be the best possible ETK program, and I want it to be functional and sustainable and work. And I want a policy that reflects a program that could actually succeed. Otherwise, let's not do the program.
So I can tell you my objective for it right now is to fill in TK slots, because I don't feel that the ETK program we have right now is of the highest quality that we could be offering. I think that if there are some successful students, that's awesome, but as an early childhood educator, we took a huge risk this year, and we did it because of the snafu last year of it being rolled out prior to board approval, and then we wanted to honor the commitment that was made to parents who had already enrolled. If we could go back and revisit that, it would be very different.
Well, I think there was a reason that it was brought forward as a possibility to us as parents last January. And I don't think it was brought forward, I don't think we were told about the program, and maybe Jamie could speak to this. Why was it rolled out? You know, what was the objective at that point? I believe my understanding was that this was an exciting new possibility. And yet, as it was brought to the board last week, and as it's being sort of discussed, I still am going to stick to the fact that if we have a program as a district, we should have programs that we're proud of, that are successful.
I agree.
And if you're not proud, and you know what I mean? And who took more of a risk? You as a board passing that policy, or me as a parent of a 4-year-old sending my child into that?
The whole community got thrown into a risky situation.
So let's not make it so risky. Let's make it better.
We are. And that's why it says in this new TK policy that we're going to be honoring Title V and Title 22 regulations with an instructional aid in each of the classrooms. So we are improving upon the quality.
But that's only your opinion.
It is my opinion, but we also voted on it, and it was 4-1.
Right, but that, what I'm saying is, the information about all of the information that we voted on, we had no time to consider prior to the meeting. We had no time to look at that information or that recommendation prior to the meeting.
Let's get back on track here, because we're really actually only discussing admission right now.
Okay, then I would like to, I'm still going to try. I really feel that a lot of the decisions around ETK would be better if supported by a committee of people really working on the topic. And so
I think that that staff does that. I don't think that it's the board's role to be in the weeds of that. I also wonder, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but that since you have a child in ETK right now, if there's not a little bit of a conflict there.
What, because I see directly how well my child is doing, and the children of other people and everything. Anyways,
okay,
I think that the best way to study information is to not go on my opinion, but to go on research and the needs of our community and the needs of our students. And I don't think that research or the needs of our community or the needs of parents were at all informed by last week's decisions at all.
Is your mic on?
If if I could, just a pointer and a suggestion. Obviously, you're going to have the, you're going to be able to look forward to this coming back
As a
at the
second
next
reading.
board meeting, because this is only a first reading.
Yes.
But in terms of where you are now, there's a motion
Yep.
that's been made, that's been seconded, that pertains to, a half a dozen words or less. And so if Maureen wishes to, once again, to offer an amendment to the motion, that would be the way to do that, in which case the maker of the motion would have the option to accept it or not. And failing that, in other words, if that should fail, then obviously there will be a further opportunity for the entire
At our
board
next meeting.
to discuss it at the next meeting.
So do you have an amendment?
Not to this particular
Okay.
piece.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of Administrative Regulation 5111, students admission first reading? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Are you opposed or
Yes.
for?
You said
Opposed.
You're opposed. So 3-2. Okay, so move on to Board Policy Administrative Regulation 5126, Students Awards for Achievement, first reading. Can I get a motion there?
So I think I provided some background on this
Yeah.
particular item.
I move, so moved. Oh, sorry. So moved. Or I move to
Yeah, that's fine.
approve the first reading of BP and AR 5126 Student Awards for Achievement.
Great.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, Board Policy 5113, Students' Absences and Excuses, first reading.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, item Educational Services G. G1 is the district instructional calendar for 17-18. Do I have a motion there?
I move to approve.
I second that.
Okay, discussion?
I just had a question. When is that, like, what's the timeline around this getting decided? Because I had, this is too late, I believe. I mean, meaning next year it would be great if it could be approved sooner. And I don't know if there's a reason why it can't be.
It can be, yes, next year.
Okay. It was just.
It should be.
Okay.
And it'd
Okay.
be great if we had multi-year calendars.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, because I was trying, I have to do custody
Yep.
wrangling, and I couldn't do it. Anyways. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to H, Business Operations Facilities and Warrants. I
I
get a motion
move
there.
we approve the warrants for the period of January 21st through February 3rd, 2017, in the amount of $240,945.85.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item H2, Gifts, Grants, Donations. The board's being asked to accept a donation of computers and related equipment with a value of $7,100 from iPower Resale to the CUSD.
I move to accept this donation.
Second.
That's excellent. Thank you very much to iPower Resale. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to Measure U. Item I1 is acceptance of a completed contract with EJS Construction for multipurpose room interior upgrades at Canalino. The final contract amount was $225,812.60. So just a little bit over, a couple grand over the original bid.
But boy, does it look beautiful.
It does. All right, so can I get a motion there?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item I2 is a contract with Robert Robles Architecture for campus modernization at Aliso. The compensation for the modernization at Aliso is $421,650 and will be paid for from Measure U bond funds.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item I3, approval of flood evaluation from Stantec Consulting for the high school. The proposal's for $9,500 and paid for from Measure U bond funds.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Item I4 is our contracts, plural, with Flowers and Associates for Carpenter High School, Middle School, Catalino, and Aliso for, let's see, I'll go down the list here. High school, these are for design and civil engineering services. Walkway replacement at the high school for $32,700. Modular classroom grading design for $31,300. Interim housing grading sidewalk improvements for $17,500. Middle school modular classrooms for grading, drainage, utilities, sidewalk, $38,900. Interim housing, grading, drainage, utilities for $17,500. Catalino, 6 modular classrooms, grading, drainage, utilities, sidewalk, $35,500. Interim housing for $9,500. Aliso, modular classroom, grading, drainage, utilities, sidewalk improvements, $44,500. All contracts to be paid for with Measure U funding.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item I5 is portable classroom lease proposal from Elite Leasing and Sales for interim housing at the high school and middle school. Contract is for $120,000 for 3 years and paid for from Measure U. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the portable classroom lease proposal for interim housing from Elite Leasing and Sales Incorporated.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item J1, Director, it's a personnel. This is we're being asked to approve the Director of Special Programs job descriptions presented. Do I have a motion there?
Are we going to hear anything about that, or?
Are we hearing a motion?
Yeah, so this is what we discussed at the board budget study session. When we presented that to you, we were eliminating the Director of Educational Services position, which had some supervisory and evaluatory things in it and some other things that were really more the job of the superintendent. So this is a position that will basically oversee curriculum instruction and assessment, which we're currently contracting out to a few retirees, and also in the goal of having a cohesive instructional system, TK to 12. The salary is lower. This was an existing job that had not been filled for a few years, but the salary is lower than the educational services, which was projected in Maureen's budget study session documents.
I'm just wondering, due to our fiscal constraints as they were proposed during the budget study session, I'm wondering, I would like to suggest that we postpone the approval of this job description and moving forward with filling the position until we have our new superintendent, just so that they can, not only so we can look at our finances at that point, but also allow our new leadership to kind of take a look at our budget and also our personnel situation and perhaps make tweaks or make recommendations at that point.
So do I have a motion?
I move to postpone this decision
Okay.
until after our superintendent
Second.
is hired.
Any discussion? Any further discussion?
Do you have anything to?
I just so if we don't do this position, then we would need to pursue contracts again with the 3 retirees that are covering these duties right now. So the discussion we've had with them is, should this job be approved, that they would go off gently into retirement happily, in the sun. So nicely. So that would be my concern, is that we would have a gap there, that we need folks to be doing something. The other concern about that we would have, I believe, about delaying is that when you go out for a position like this and you advertise and you're trying to get a pool of highly qualified candidates, to do it in the summertime or in the fall is not going to be as competitive. Darlene can probably speak to that more specifically.
Yes, when you, like we're recruiting for our superintendent, it's best to do that in the spring, in February, March, because that's generally when any candidates that are looking for another position that is the key time to hire, because then they would be starting July 1st. If we postpone this until we have our new superintendent who wouldn't start until July 1st, we'd be behind the game. And so we wouldn't necessarily get qualified candidates. They would have already applied to other positions with other districts.
So, go ahead.
So you're saying we have a need there. It's
Yes.
currently being filled by 3 contracts. And so we cannot not have these needs met.
Correct.
So we're going to replace those 3 contracts with this position.
Correct.
Which
And
would be
staff is recommending that we go with the position rather than the 3 contracts.
Not just staff, but the entire leadership team is feeling a severe need for a curriculum and instruction centralization.
I just don't know how we can, on one hand, recommend $580,000 in staff cuts and also be hiring a $100,000 position at the same time. It doesn't make fiscal sense.
So part of our recommendation to you was to eliminate the Director of Educational Services position, which was originally supposed to do this work. That was about $50,000 more than this. So our recommendation was to eliminate that more expensive position and distribute some of those duties back onto the superintendent and the principals and create a less expensive position exactly for that reason, so that we were more fiscally aware of what the impact would be. And I'd also like to make everybody aware that we did actually cut an administrator in our budget study session as well. So we are not top heavy in any way in Carpenter Unified.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. So this director of special programs was on the books before.
Correct.
Okay. But has the job description been
updated,
revised?
Correct.
So is this really just, it's not an approval of a new position. It's
just the job description.
A revision of the job description, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then just for a note, the salary range you have on the board cover sheet is the Director of Ed Services, I guess. My other question is, because the Director of Ed Services was supposed to be doing curriculum development, and we're saying we're eliminating that, and then we're having this position that's doing curriculum development, is there any possible, going to be any pushback about why we're doing that?
So I don't think the job descriptions are pretty different. That position had supervisorial duties, and
it also included the possibility of being a principal of one of our small schools.
And take this out. Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that staff works extremely hard and that all of you wear 16 hats. I am just cognizant of the changes that a superintendent would naturally want to make anyways. And I feel that leaving this position open, getting by with contractors until we hire someone, would allow that superintendent some flexibility around staffing choices that they might want to make as well. Whereas if we hire someone into this position, it kind of locks us in and also could exacerbate our precarious, our financial situation where we're already trying to make cuts.
It's an at-will position.
Can Darlene make a comment?
So I'd like to comment in response to your concern waiting for a superintendent. So this year we ended up having to replay how to go out and recruit a middle school principal, and we did so at a late time of the year. And so if we do the same thing, we didn't end up hiring a new principal because we didn't have qualified candidates to fill that position. So we ended up having our Director of Educational Services serve as the interim principal. If you do wait, you're going to end up with the same issue. And then we're not going to have anybody to replace that person because we're already cutting back administration. So I think although I understand your concern in waiting for the superintendent to make that decision, I think at this time it's important for us to move forward with at least the recruiting process and begin that. and then admin is at will. We are not, we're not bound by tenureship or
Right.
anything.
But I
we're
think it's a
hoping
lot
for-
harder for someone. I mean, as a new superintendent, it's preferable to be able to hire someone rather than necessarily work with people and then fire somebody potentially.
So this person would really be working very much with principals, and I think that we are hoping for going out now to find some very strong candidates because we really need kind of a firecracker person in this role. It's a wide and varied role to be covering curriculum TK to 12 and understand the new assessment system, the new accountability system, the LCAP, the data dashboard. So we need somebody with all that knowledge, and we're not going to really want to settle for someone who's not quite up to par in that type of role because it's a key position in what is our basic mission, which is teaching and learning.
So if we approve it and post, we can though delay interviews till after the new superintendent is hired. I wouldn't feel comfortable having interviews prior to the new superintendent being chosen. It's too key of a position.
I agree. I think this person is going to have to work in such close sync with the superintendent. And depending on who we hire as a superintendent, their background could actually cover some of this position, and we might find that we actually want this position to have a whole other skill set. That's
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to delay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Just remind
Wait.
we're lost.
Okay, so
we're
we
not
have
voting on this.
Are we voting to
We're not-
approve the position?
No, I have a
or-
motion to
I had a
postpone
motion
making
to
the decision.
postpone making any decision on this at all. Basically,
Oh,
we're
to
being basically the table. All we're being asked to do is approve the job description.
But
So-
then the hiring process would start, we're being told.
Okay. So I have a motion to table this in a second.
Can I get another clarification before I vote on this? So if we table this, are our three contractors still in place to do this?
You'll have to ask them.
Aye, by God.
Are they in contract till June 30th? Yeah, so they're in contract till June. I mean, it gets us through this school year.
I know it's not ideal, but I just feel like nothing is ideal right now. We're just trying to kind of make do
Right.
until we have new leadership.
So just to be clear, that then we would be ending with our contractors, and then we have nothing in the interim period, and we're going out late. So that's what we're asking for.
Well, I'm just thinking our interviews are April 8th and 9th. That's public knowledge. We will know at least internally
The 9th.
the 9th, and then
He or she can take over.
and then this could
What's
be
your-
one of the
what's your-
first
What's your
thing on their agenda.
what's your timeline on this, Darlene? You would post sometime in the next couple weeks.
Yes, and then post it for about 3 weeks to 4 weeks, and then
So it's about the same
and
time
then start
period.
interviews.
You'd start interviews. So your time period is almost parallel.
But wouldn't you want the new superintendent to choose the person that they're going to be?
If they have the opportunity to.
Maybe he's
If it's a
of his
few
job.
weeks
Yeah.
later, why not give them that option? I just think it's
But I think it's important to understand that our superintendent wouldn't be starting until July 1st.
No, I know, but they could still weigh in. I mean, they always have their foot in two places
We could put-
before July
what-
1st.
How difficult is it to put the interviews off for your
Yeah.
for this position till
You could
the second
post
week
it.
second week of April?
Yeah.
Well, we can post it. You just run the risk of losing some qualified candidates
Yeah.
that would
No, I
be
understand.
applying at other districts at the same time. And this is a unique position, so it's not like there's an abundance of them. So I think if we go out early and then we're able to recruit and select,
I just think it would be a shame to hire this person 2 weeks before we hired a superintendent who could have then given us some feedback on. And again, there could be a crossover in skill sets, and we might find that we actually want, the position to be tailored to the needs of the new superintendent too.
Yeah, I don't see it quite that distinctive. I mean, it's a position it's obviously a necessary position. We've had it
Yeah.
Bob and Sue and Sharon have been filling this position, the three of them, for, a number of years.
I'm not opposed to the position. I'm just saying I would like the interviews postponed until
Okay,
the
so
new leader is in place, or at least been offered to be in place. I don't know.
Well,
But if you have a new superintendent in place, everybody is new. Meanwhile, we still have gaps in services
Well,
if we
it'd be
don't
like
have this position.
Well, it'd be like
right?
saying we don't have.
I mean, I understand. I see.
I can
your
see
point.
this as waiting. I can see your point, but I can also say it'd be like saying we're going out for a new principal. Be saying, okay, the superintendent should weigh in on that too. But really, you want to go out as early as possible on a principal, so you get the most candidates. Because last time we didn't get that. So.
And if we have in our mind, sorry, Andy, are you done?
No.
If in our mind we know what we want, then I want, if that fills our needs, then I want the best candidate that will fill our needs.
Okay, so we have a motion to table and a second. And we've had discussion. So all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Are you
I
voting?
don't know what I want to do. It's hard. It's hard. We don't have another meeting in February either, right? Okay.
28th.
Can I make a different motion?
Well, you can- no, you have to-
I have to vote on this.
You have to
one.
vote on this one, and then you can make another motion.
Okay.
But we're really, just to be clear, this is
then-
just the
then-
job description.
Okay, then yes,
Okay,
I
wait.
approve the job description.
No,
So I
Are
do
you-
not.
are
So
you-
I say
Table.
no to
Motion.
tabling.
No to tabling. Okay, so
no to
tabling
tabling.
fails by 2 to 3.
But my new motion is that we approve the job description, but we postpone the selection of the person until after we've picked a new superintendent.
Second that.
Second.
But
Discussion.
but that would still limit our candidate pool.
No, I
That's
don't.
the whole.
Yes.
I don't
If
think
we
it-
wait.
I know that's a risk, but
It could get. It could get. I think it's a good
There's a risk with
compromise.
everything, yeah.
I think it's a good compromise because it would get the ball moving forward, and if the superintendent hiring process took longer than we thought for some unknown reason, we would still have the candidates, and we could still have. We could still.
So Maureen, what happens is they accept positions, and so if you wait too long, then they're no longer in your candidate
No,
pool.
but okay. So then, we could. Yeah.
So most people are getting their jobs in this area in like March or April.
Well, same with superintendents then too.
Correct.
Yeah. So again, I think I don't think 2 weeks or 3 weeks is going to affect the candidate pool that strongly.
And I mean, I hate to kind of prioritize, but I mean, I'm more concerned about the superintendent than this position. I mean, I know it's an important position, but I just want to set it up so the new superintendent's going to be successful.
But if I may, I think you're going to, that's going to hinder the superintendent if we wait on hiring positions that are in administration level.
The new superintendent needs a very strong staff.
I understand where you're coming from, both of you, wanting to wait, but in essence, you're saying, okay, we're going to wait till we have a new superintendent so they can choose a weak candidate.
No, I'm actually coming at it from a fiscal standpoint because we've been recommended to make $580,000 in cuts
Well, this position
of
saves
staff
us
that
$50,000.
Right, but right now we're saving even more money because we don't have this position in place.
No, we're not. We're already paying for it. With
Okay. But this locks us in.
No, it doesn't. It's not
So we can just fire them tomorrow. I mean, we're hearing that this is a critical position, no matter what. We're hearing that it's a critical position.
Well, it's a required position. We're spending the money regardless.
Well, I
So
don't.
fiscally, it's a savings from this year, and it's a savings from what we're setting ourselves up for last year. It's a wash for this year fiscally.
I just think we're being asked to analyze, staff cuts, at one meeting, and then the next meeting we're being asked to approve and hire someone for $100,000. I just think let's get some superintendent. Let's get a superintendent in who can give us some clarity about the direction of any kind of cuts that are going to be necessary from their point of view, and get that input. That's where I'm coming from.
I think it's a lot to ask for a new superintendent to come in and provide us with clarity on the budget that we've been immersed in.
So
Some of us.
Can I get a motion on this job description?
Michelle made one and we seconded it.
Okay.
To accept the job description and postpone the interviews. That was my motion.
And it was seconded. I seconded it.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm not in favor of that, so I'm opposed. So you guys went 3-2. 3-2 to Pat, yeah, with Michelle's motion. Okay.
So you can start recruiting.
Board communications.
I know you're mad at me.
Michelle.
No, I'm too tired. It's 10 after 9.
All right.
Happy
Maureen?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I just want to say on Valentine's Day what deep affection I have for our community and for our schools and for this group of people in here that are working so hard to make these difficult decisions happen. So it wouldn't have been my ideal Valentine's Day probably, but I appreciate that you guys, the time that you're putting in and people listening and think of all those people here tonight that gave up, date nights, or maybe this was their date night. So I think this is community.
It's a contrived holiday.
it's to me, I felt very moved by the outpouring of people tonight, regardless of the outcome. I think just seeing our community being so engaged in the schools is very, very inspiring to me when they don't have to.
Rahil, you have anything?
Yes, all I have to say is that all it takes is time to get people together, and we saw it tonight. And it's still neighbors are divided, friends are divided, families are divided. We are all divided, but the five of us, hopefully.
We're divided too.
Nah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in spirit.
Not in spirit. Not in spirit. Just on certain issues. Okay. I don't have anything. I want to go home.
Yeah.
So we got board calendar. We want to schedule board tours.
So we would like to schedule a half-day, maybe morning tour of Aliso School and Carpinteria Middle School.
What are you recommending?
We were recommending this month. We can do the 24th, February 24th.
Do we have a board meeting that day?
No, it's a Friday.
Monday, March the 6th.
In the morning, you said?
Yes.
What time?
8:30.
That's 8:30. Monday the 6th is good for me.
Yeah, that works for me.
Yes.
8:30 to when? Noon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to leave before noon, but I can do 8:30. It's fine.
Monday the 6th.
And is this going to be an ongoing, we'll tour all the schools eventually or something?
So the former practice prior to the previous superintendent was, it's a little punchy right now, I'm sorry.
Mr. Cordero?
Yes. The former practice was twice yearly, I believe, a fall and a spring.
It was.
District office.
District office, okay.
Will there be donuts?
Sure.
Well, Paul used to bring us breakfast burritos, so. And cinnamon rolls.
And cinnamon rolls.
That he made.
Yeah, he made. Handmade.
I do have his recipe for cinnamon
Okay.
rolls.
I'll make them. If
I make them a lot at
Okay.
my house.
I want to try your tomato jam that you got an award
yeah.
for.
Okay, we have that scheduled. So, future agenda items. Yes.
We want to talk about the March 28th
Oh, we
meeting.
do. Yeah.
That
That's a future agenda item. We want to put on as a future agenda item at our next meeting. We're going to discuss possibly canceling our March 28th meeting because it's during spring break.
Yeah, I won't be here.
So we may not have a quorum. So we'll discuss that next meeting. And then Maureen, you wanted to add a couple things.
Yes.
earlier.
I just, I don't know how it would exactly be phrased, but I would like to see us discuss having an ETK committee. So
So you want to have that as a future agenda?
I think so.
Just have a discussion on ETK committee.
Like forming an ETK committee?
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Going
Once, going twice?
I have a question. I can't ask any questions.
Yeah, you can. You can ask a
Can I
question.
ask a question? Just moving forward, totally random on the calendar.
We're not in Russia here.
Is the calendar something that, like, are the dates of the calendar something that's? I was going to ask this. What?
The board calendar?
Yeah, or no, the school calendar,
board
is that
calendar, yeah.
negotiated
Or
with
school calendar, yeah.
with the union?
It is. It's a
Okay.
negotiated item.
It's a negotiated item.
Yeah, that's why we don't have multi-year
Right.
Did we take
calendars.
last year or the year before we polled the parents?
We poll the parents to see
Yeah.
if they want the 3
Survey.
weeks.
2 weeks. So we
2
involved
weeks.
the community in it.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
quite extensive.
So that doesn't need to be an agenda item.
No.
Because
No,
it's
already
covered.
it
It's
happens.
negotiated and negotiated. Okay. All right. Thank you.
There's a committee. There's a calendar committee.
Wow.
You can be on that if you want. And we're adjourned. We're done.
Do you do the gavel?
No, I don't do any of that. I only gavel once if I can help it.